Much better. Thank you very much.
Morristown Green. Michael? Yeah, he's the guy who runs it. Yeah, I work for him basically. Yeah. What's that?
The bridge, the Memorial Day parade.
Yeah, probably.
It's Michael, right? Yeah. Did you cover the story for the hospital that's happening in Morristown?
No, Kevin's.
Kevin's doing it. Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting one for
sure. He was telling me about it the other day.
Yeah, I was talking to a couple of the council people in Morristown about it.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, right? Because it's gonna expand, bring more population in, but it's also a good revenue stream for the city.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I feel like that's been kind of the story of development, right?
Yeah. And how can you, of all the developments, how could you be against the hospital? Right?
Exactly right.
It almost seems like.
Yeah.
Who knows? We'll see how it plays out. But I also saw the Mayor Performing Arts Center got approval for their bill as well.
Yeah.
Which is great. It's gonna be. My son does a lot of stuff there.
Oh, really?
So he's been in with the last 3 major productions he's been in, and they all got really excited when this got approved. Because they're going to give them personal space, and public space, all good things. So it's good to see all the towns expanding and
definitely
in the right direction. So,
very
it's good stuff. So appreciate you being here covering these. So it's good to get some media coverage. So
exactly.
Nice to have it. I do what I can with YouTube and Facebook and all that stuff. But having an actual reporter here is great.
Yeah.
So.
This is super helpful too.
Yeah. Well, actually, tonight I'm actually streaming live on YouTube.
Yeah.
There was a limitation before about how many subscribers I had to have, and I think YouTube changed their terms. So between those two things, it allowed me to stream live tonight. So I'm doing that. So hopefully it'll post right to YouTube right when it's done, and then it's instant when it gets there. So yeah, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, yeah. You guys, so you film on both devices, just like
Yeah, so this I do just the live stream, whether it's Facebook or YouTube, and then this one is what ends up on the YouTube channel, and that's got more of the close-up shots, and all that. So it's just my iPad and my iPhone, and
yeah.
you know, I actually got a new iPhone for the stream.
Oh, really?
I want a better camera.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's, you know, pretty good setup, but it's totally amateur. Like, I don't do this for a living. It's just, you know, service up, you know, something as a resident I want to do for
Right.
the town.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you do?
So I work. I'm a consultant for a bank in New York.
Okay.
I'm a tech consultant, and I do like a lot of audio, video stuff, but I'm on the project management side. And so yeah, so that's my day job, and then actually, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that I actually just won the election in North Point. So,
Oh, congratulations.
yeah, so I'm going to be the next councilman.
Oh, awesome.
Me and Tyler. This is one of the things we're hoping to have the town, be able to bring to the town and have them.
I was gonna say you gotta get somebody else to work.
So that's my next video is going to be asking the town people to step
This
in
one's,
and do something.
oh my God, we need $5 more.
So, yeah, because I'll be busy a few days.
Right.
Making a bunch of decisions.
You'll be on the other side.
$8 on free
Yeah,
tour.
yeah.
Should be
I
good.
was like,
Yeah.
When you get sworn in?
January 7th, whatever the Tuesday is. I think it's late this year because I think January 1st, I think it was like a Wednesday.
Right.
So then it's the following Tuesday. So yeah, so it's the 7th. So, yeah. And then it's a 3-year appointment. Yeah, there for 3 years. And, you know, we'll see how it goes.
Right,
You know, enough people have confidence in me. I'll do the best I
Yeah.
can and see what happens in 3 years.
Yeah.
So. Good, how are you?
Good.
That's usually where all the witnesses sit. I'm sure you can slide that stuff over if you want to have the front row seat.
Worst they can do is yell
Hey, Bill?
Yes.
You know what? You're actually right in the shop.
Am I?
Yeah, is it all right? They kind of sit right there, so it doesn't matter where you move your head's kind of right in the shop.
Oh, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Don't be sorry, be happy. Who's sitting there?
No one. That's you. That's you. Thank you. Go for it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, no worries. Hey. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for doing this. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Appreciate it. Yeah, no problem.
I advocate for that as well.
You get the coolest gigs, Paul.
I just talked to the head stagehand today. And I was like,
Yeah.
I really want the doors to see that.
Yeah.
What can you do for me?
Nice.
It's only like an hour and a half. So I always want to figure out the chorus
Very, very short attention span. Yeah.
So it's like, I took my time and taking this year with me now to be work friends.
Yes.
And then
Yeah. Yeah. Which nutcracker did you get? The one at MPAC or? Wow. That's great. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I can't. Don't worry.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
light fixed at Court Road? Is the light fixed on Court Road?
I don't know.
Can you check for it on your way?
Yeah, check.
Because it's gone, it went out again. They had a bad set of bulbs.
Okay.
So I know it was out.
Okay.
But
Well,
nobody
make sure
called.
you put all the other lights in.
Yeah, we're going to put it in the budget and see what happens.
See my snowman?
I love your snowman. With the little nose. People were watching them. They were looking at it. Like, what the hell is that? So, yeah, it's the one on the
I'll
Court
check.
Road.
I will. Thank you.
Hey, Jason, good. How are you?
To the Republic, which stands
that this meeting is being held in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Open Public Meeting Act. Proper notice of meeting dates has been given to the Morris News Feed and the Morris County Daily Record and posted on the bulletin board in the Borough Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Roll call, please.
Mr. Augenblick.
Present.
Mr. Garabaglia.
Present.
Mrs. Kelly. Present. Mrs. Stecker. Present. Mrs. McCluskey.
Here.
Mr. Kelly. Mr. Becker.
Here.
Mayor Carr. And Mr. Drew.
Present.
Are there any comments from the public to speak on matters that are not on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we will close that portion of the meeting. Karen, do we have any correspondence? No correspondence, and we have no bills. Minor Site Plan Committee? Nothing. Master Plan Review Committee? New business? Well, old business is application TD 124, McDonald's USA. This is continuation of the public hearing.
Good to see you all out again. I just want to go remind everybody's been doing well. I know that the board knows there's a lot of interest in this, and appreciate, as the chair said, you keep the quorum as if you were in a court proceeding. That's really what this is. It's a quasi-judicial proceeding. Respect everybody. These are all residents. You're all residents. Let them speak. You'll all get a chance to speak. One at a time. As you can see, somebody is transcribing, so please, if you're questioning, allow the person to answer before you ask another question. Has to be questions, not statements. Everyone will get a chance to speak at the end if you choose. There's lots of interest in this, and as in a court proceeding, ask not be repetitive. If the questions have been asked, by all means, ask all the topics, but don't just repeat. And like a court proceeding, you can't ask questions, sit down, get up, ask them later. Everybody gets one shot. So the people that asked last time, that was your shot. There are people in line that didn't get a chance. Obviously, they can. But you get one chance, and you get to ask everything that you want. That being said,
We'll continue with the questions for the traffic expert. If you people that were in line before, want to get up?
Before we start, Madam Chairman, and thank you, I just wanted to say that I got here, I don't know, about an hour early, and I did notice that some of the staff was already here. I just wanted to thank the Morris Plains Burrows staff and the professionals that have been setting up this room. This is not where we usually meet, and the fact that it's been in this great condition and there's been really no hiccups in the tech and all that, I really do, as the applicant, appreciate it, and I thank them. Before we get to the questions, I did receive an email a couple days ago from a member of the public, and they wanted for me to produce a list of all of the locations of the 30 or so that Mr. Paraguay testified about at the prior hearing about other McDonald's locations, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Mr. Paraguay produce that list to your traffic engineer who works for the borough, and then I guess it'll be available to all of you. But what we're not going to do is Mr. Paraguay is not going to be testifying about those 30 locations. He gave his testimony. He used an example of Rawway. He mentioned a couple other, but he's not going to give testimony on 29 other locations. We're just not doing that. So the board could take that. They could judge the weight of his testimony based on that. They could accept it. They could throw it out, whatever. But I'm just telling Mr. Paraguay, I believe you're still under oath.
Yes.
Okay. And, sir.
Joe Amorosa, Amorosa, 20 Dayton Road. My questions are about the traffic report.
Okay.
Can you describe more the traffic volume data collection process? You said it was a digital technology?
Our counters use a electronic board to do the counts.
The previous question was about the error in the count board. You said minimal error, is that correct?
The board shouldn't have any error. The person counting could, be off a little bit, but they're generally pretty good.
Can we describe that as human error?
Sure.
In your experience, do people typically overcount or undercount?
I don't know if there's one way or the other. If anything, I'd say over because you hit the button an extra time. But for the most part, it's accurate. We're not talking big variations with human error. It would be not substantial enough to impact the analysis.
Did you collect data on travel speeds along Speedwell?
No.
Why not?
It's not relevant to capacity analysis.
Did you analyze or study traffic safety at the site?
The safety of the proposed McDonald's, yes. And we did, at the request of your board traffic engineer, request crash data. There was basically none. 3 crashes in 3 years.
Are existing travel speeds relevant to safety?
Depends what you're analyzing. For analyzing the operation of the proposed McDonald's, no.
For the peak periods you chose to collect traffic volume data, how did you pick those times of day? The 7 to 9 and 4:30 to 6:30 on a weekday.
It's the traffic engineering industry standard. It's what the ITE uses, is 7 to 9, and they actually use 4 to 6, but I always found that you never, between 4 and 4:30, it usually wasn't part of the peak, so we use 4:30 to 6:30, and we find that works better.
Did you collect a straight line count of traffic volumes along Speedwell?
Yes, through volumes? Yes.
Did you collect a straight line count along Speedwell for a 24-hour period?
No.
So what is your confidence level that 7 to 9 and 4:30 to 6:30 are truly the 2-hour peak periods?
25 years of experience, the entire traffic engineering industry, the standard practice of how we do things.
Did you measure queue lengths along Speedwell?
Queue lengths from where?
Downstream traffic signals?
Yeah, we did the gap study, which would include the queue lengths, the blockages from the queues.
Can you further describe how the gaps were counted or collected?
I believe we've already been over the gap study for about a half hour during the last hearing, Mr. Amorosa. I mean, I know you were here, so you heard it. Do you have a new question about it? Because he did go over the methods and how the gap study works.
All right, I guess I didn't write that down.
Excuse me?
I guess I didn't take note of, he described the methodology?
Yes, he did.
For the trip generation, you said 710 vehicles for the peak hour, and that was the weekday AM?
No, daily. The 710 was the daily volume.
Yeah, good point. Do you have the daily trip generation for Saturday and Sunday?
I can find it, it's lower, the 710 was the highest. And like I said, that comported with what McDonald's anticipates.
The independent variable used was the gross floor area of McDonald's?
Yes.
Are there other options for that calculation?
For trip generation, they may have it for seats, I'm not positive, but the standard for New Jersey DOT and the industry standard is the square footage.
Did you request crash records from NJDOT?
No, from the Borough Police Department.
On the site plan, can you explain how the crosswalk relocation to the north helps safety?
Sorry, I'm just trying to get it lined up so we can see the crosswalks, so it makes sense what I'm talking about. This thing's not responding too quickly. If you put the crosswalk between where it is today, it's sort of between the two driveways, which is sort of like it is today, and closer to them, closer to the driveway, so we wanted to evenly space it between the site driveway and Dayton Road and capture the opposite corner of the speedwell. This was actually at the suggestion of the borough. We took it to New Jersey DOT, they agreed, same thing, yeah, this is a better location with this configuration. Because remember, right now there's a driveway right next to where this crosswalk is. We're getting rid of that driveway, so that's why it makes more sense where it is.
Can you, what's the offset between your driveway and Hillview?
From center line to center line,
Yes.
about 50 feet, I would estimate.
Does that comply with New Jersey Access Management Code?
Yes, they don't have anything about the driveways on the opposite side. They were happy with the location of the driveway when we had our pre-application meeting. We need to be 12 feet from the property line and 24 feet from adjacent driveways on our side. And we're forward on that.
In your traffic data collection, did you count bicyclists?
If there were any, we would have, but I don't believe there were any. We count the pedestrians.
Did you factor the traffic data you collected for seasonality or month of the year?
No, we took counts when school was open, which is would be a typical day for this location.
Back to the report for your drive-through queuing analysis. What step in the drive-through process is the slowest? The speaker or pickup or payment?
For an individual vehicle, it's the speaker, it's the ordering at the speaker, which is why that's why McDonald's is switching to the 2 lanes so they can get that zoom through faster because they're able to deliver the food out the window quicker and take the orders.
And that's what your service rate's describing, the ordering step?
Yes.
For the drive-through queuing analysis, what did you use as a design vehicle?
Passenger car.
18-foot length?
It's 20 feet spacing between vehicle to vehicle and drive-throughs. We've done studies to verify that. So the little car that's shown here is the Astro design vehicle, which I believe is 19 feet long, but the spacing distance we use is 20 feet because that's what we see in drive-throughs queues.
How does that queue calculation get impacted if there's a long truck or something longer than 20 feet?
There's probably also cars that are shorter than the 20 feet in there. It's on average 20 feet.
When a pedestrian pushes the button at the rectangular rapid flashing beacon, can you describe what happens to traffic on Speedwell?
They'll visibly see the beacons flashing when somebody's looking across the road. It's much higher visibility than the little orange flags that are there now.
How will that device impact congestion on Speedwell?
Assuming that the pedestrian volumes are similar, I don't see how there will be any different impact than you have today. It's going to be safer. That's the bottom line.
In your experience, does that device attract more pedestrians to cross at that location?
I'm not aware of any studies that show that.
Are we able to discuss the truck turning drawings? Those three?
That was an exhibit for the site engineer. So no, we're not going to have any more testimony on that. Plus, Mr. Paraguay already testified to that at the last hearing. The truck turning. I remember it, and you were there, so it happened.
Consider right in, right out driveway on Speedwell for your site access?
No.
Any consideration for restriping Speedwell for a turn lane in both right turn northbound, left turn southbound?
If NJDOT makes us do that, we'll have to do it. It's up to them, it's their road.
Just to clarify what you said before, you just looked at traffic operations. There's no consideration for traffic safety.
There is considerations for traffic safety relative to the application before us. I didn't do a corridor study of Speedwell Avenue, that would be a whole different thing. This is to ensure that this project can be built and operate safely.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi. Lee Connor, 2 Tower Hill Road in Morris Plains. First, I want to be sure I'm up to date in terms of people exiting the property, either the McDonald's property or Dayton Road. They can go right or left on Speedwell. There's no
That's correct.
no modification.
Correct.
Now, Mr. Vitale, I'm not going to ask our expert to talk about 31 McDonald's, but he did cite 6 specifically as similar. There were Vale, Newton, Hackensack, Malaga, Long Branch, West Long Branch, and West Milk.
Yeah, 2 lane roads, yes. No, 2 lanes.
Hackensack, but, and so I've looked at them carefully, and I've done screenshots, and I have research that I would like to submit to the board if anyone is interested, and I'll ask later if there's a mechanism to do that. But the one thing that jumped out at me is they all have some kind of modification guidance for traffic. It's either right lane only, in Boonton, it's an actual traffic light.
I hate to interrupt, but you can only ask questions.
Oh, I'll get to it. Give me a minute.
Okay.
Or there's a turning lane. So the question is, was that ever considered for the Morris Plains property, or would it ever be?
As I mentioned, the last person, if NJDOT asks us to restrict the road and put turning lanes, we'll have to do that. It's not necessary based on my analysis. Our pre-application meeting, they didn't indicate any need to do that, but when the application is actually put forward, we have to do what they say relative to the crosswalk, the lighting, the do not block, all that stuff. It's their road.
So right, left, no problem from your point of view.
Correct.
Thank you. My other question was from the traffic report, the October 9th traffic report, you made clear that the NJDOT, traffic's gonna go up no matter what, 2% a year is the NJDOT annual background growth rate table.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to say, through consultation with the Morris Plains Borough Planning Board staff, there are no other developments in the vicinity of the site that have been approved, or not yet constructed, that are identified as significant traffic generators. And then I believe it was after this report came out, at least it first became public in mid-October, New Jersey's 4th round of recommended affordable housing obligations, which Morris Plains will be tasked with 341 affordable units times 5, because of the whole thing with the builders, and if we add in Morris Township, Hanover Township, and Parsippany, that's potential 10,730 new units. Would this new information be something you'd go back for a revised traffic study and take into account the traffic from those obligations?
No, that's exactly what that growth rate's for.
The 2%, even though a whole new round of obligations was thank you. And then lastly, you said in your testimony that there's actually plenty of room, that the site can handle a lot of traffic, that the additional McDonald's traffic, it was an optimistic and a rosy picture, and you went forward 2 years. If something should happen, whether it could be foreseen or not, but in year 3, year 4, and we've got gridlock, and we've got safety, and we've got headaches, and we've got, accidents, what remedies, in your experience as a traffic expert, does a town have if the optimist predictions prove not to have played out that way? What can they do? The McDonald's is there, the traffic is there.
I'm not sure what headaches because of the McDonald's, you're saying it's more difficult to turn out. I mean, I think people would just make a right turn instead of a left turn. It's not something that's going to be problematic to anything but the operation of the McDonald's. Now, if you're talking about Speedwell Avenue as a whole, I'm not studying Speedwell Avenue, I'm studying the McDonald's, but those things would be improved. That's why we all pay taxes. roadway improvements or anything, who knows?
Gotcha. Thank you.
Oh, and also, may I submit my research into evidence, not evidence, but
Yeah,
in case I'm on.
If it's relevant, you can do it at the time where you can speak and make statements.
At the very end, gotcha, thank you.
Nancy Mirabell, 349 Lane. Traffic on Speedwell, we have 700 cars, 700 cars pulling in and out of McDonald's a day, possibly, okay? How will that impact traffic on Speedwell? Particularly the cars pulling in, which have to slow down a little bit.
That was the whole testimony that I gave at the last hearing. That's what the whole traffic report is about. How, that's specifically what I analyzed, is how this will work with the traffic that's on Speedwell.
So there will be no further impact?
No substantial impact, no.
Okay. Is there the possibility of more traffic accidents with people pulling in and pulling out?
I don't believe so. I believe what we're doing would actually make this site safer in terms of eliminating a driveway, providing a better crosswalk with that flashing beacon, which are
Okay, I'm not
big
even...
improvements. We're a permitted use here. You don't necessarily
Right.
need to do those things, but we are.
Right.
Excuse me, please let him answer. I know you're pretty good, please let him answer and then, yes.
Okay. I'm just a little confused because I would think with that many cars pulling in and out, there's the potential for some accidents coming in and out of the driveway.
That goes for any driveway or access point. We design it to have proper visibility and as safe as possible, but any driveway has that potential. We're getting rid of one. We're going from 2 driveways to 1, so we're making that better.
Okay. The tractor trailer pulling out onto Dayton Road, and now there are cars at the top of the box and the end of the box, so the box is open, okay? Does the tractor trailer pull out into the box?
You mean that do not block the box?
Right.
It pulls out just like any other car when there's a gap in traffic.
Okay, but the tractor trailer is likely then to block the box if the cars are at either end of the box.
Well, then the police could give them a ticket because it's not supposed to block the box.
Okay, thank you.
Ronald Yarger, 3 Thompson Way. Thank you, Mr. President, for testifying here, and thank you for the planning board for making decisions available. My questions have to do with the parking. How many cars? I think you said 8, 2 lines of 4 at the ordering kiosk.
Yeah, right.
2 lines
Before you
of
get to
4.
that crosswalk, yeah.
Right. And how many McDonald's attendants are taking those orders?
Inside?
Yeah, inside.
I don't know.
Maybe 1.
It's magic to me that they can figure it all out. They do it.
And how long is the ordering process on average?
Based on the setup that they have, they can theoretically process 150 to 180 vehicles per hour through there. So if you do the math, it's about 48 seconds per lane, 24 seconds an hour.
So less than a minute for each order.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then 710 cars per day coming in over a 17-hour period averages to about 42 cars per hour. Does that sound about right, on average?
Oh, if they were spread out evenly through every hour, I suppose. Yeah.
And then at peak hours, it might be up to 60 cars per hour or 1 per minute, I would guess.
Yeah, the peak hours it's busier, and then off hours it's hardly any.
And so at a really busy time, where do those cars stop if there are 8 cars ordering in the order lane? Where do those cars behind the 8 stop?
My testimony the last time was, that we don't believe that there's going to be an issue in terms of the queuing, but you could still fit past that back of that, 4 more cars before you go out when there's a speed well out there. So there is an extra buffer if that were to happen. But the probability, I testified to last time with our queuing model, and based on my experience, in other words, the probability of it getting past that crosswalk is 0.18%. So it would be incredibly infrequent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don Yungher, 10 Welsh Way. So we've got a few questions. First of which is just generally, what is the purpose of a traffic study? And specifically, why does McDonald's request it? Pay for that?
Look, there are all kinds of different traffic studies. And for this particular case, the purpose of the traffic study is to determine what conditions of traffic would be like with and without the McDonald's, and determine if there's any change that would warrant some improvement.
So it's fair to say that this is to sort of probe future conditions in a way that lets them proactively make changes to benefit, and I guess this is a question. First, is that accurate what I'm saying? And then second, to benefit McDonald's, to benefit the borough, mutual benefit, how is it usually framed?
To benefit the motoring public, let's put it that way.
Benefit the motoring, okay. Clarification question from your report. You wrote, traffic associated with LUC 934 is not 100% newly generated, rather a portion of traffic is diverted from the existing traffic stream on the, and this is what I'm asking about, the adjacent roadway network. Does that mean Speedwell? Does that mean Route 10 and Hanover? What does adjacent mean?
Speedwell only.
Speedwell,
But
okay.
pass by is just Speedwell.
Okay.
You will get some people who divert off from your road, but that's a different thing.
Okay. Referring specifically to table 4, I should probably have this open. On table 4, I'm focusing primarily on the morning. The afternoon rush would be similar. Am I right to read that there would be 35 additional primary trips in the morning and 27 in the evening?
Yeah, well, 35 cars. A trip is the vehicle entering or exiting, so one car theoretically is 2 trips, so 35 more cars.
35 additional cars?
Yes.
Okay. In a future revision, I don't know how to phrase this as a question. Would you care to know that your column headers are, there's a typo? Can you confirm it's in, out, total, in, out, total?
It is. I'm a traffic expert, not a Microsoft Word expert. I don't know why it does these things, but it does.
Okay. I think this is probably my last sort of clarification question. Probably. These numbers in table 4, is the way that they were generated that you took your count of cars on May 1st, fed it into the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation 11th edition, and that sort of yielded these predictions?
The ITE trip generation projects those numbers based on the size of the building.
On the size of the building?
Yes.
Is it related to the traffic count you did on May 1st?
No. We put the two together to do the analysis.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, we put the 2 together to, can you clarify what you mean by that?
The specific location, the counts that we do is one component, and then the projections of how much traffic the site will generate, and we bring them together to do our analysis. That's all. The numbers are based on the size of the building and the type of use.
Okay. So, again, I guess referring to table 4, am I correct that 69 total cars would be predicted to be counted during the morning peak hour?
Yes, going into the McDonald's.
Going into and then out of it.
And then most of them out. the numbers don't balance because it's statistics, but yes.
Fair enough. When you wrote peak hour, I want to clarify the term hour. I was wrong about, that would be my last clarification question. Sorry. The term hour, do you mean 60 minutes or do you mean the morning rush, like using hour to indicate 7 to 9 a.m.?
60 minutes.
60 minutes,
Literal
okay.
hour,
Okay, so between 7 and 8, there would be approximately 69 additional total cars, and between 8 and 9, there'd be 69 total cars. So it's
some number less between whatever. Again, we assume that the peak hour that ITE gives me would happen at the same time as the roadways peak hour, because we want to be conservative. That may not be the case. But the busiest hour in McDonald's would have 69 cars coming in. The next hour might have 62. The hour before that might have 68. We look at the peak on peak because any other time it's going to be less traffic, better results.
okay. And bearing that in mind, Mr. Vitolo testified last week that McDonald's predicts about 710 cars per day. Is that correct?
Yeah, the ITE is 700.
No, I don't think that. I did, first of all, I was giving information I received, and it was, I think, a range of transactions per day. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
He testified about the cars. I testified about the transactions, and it was a range.
Okay.
I didn't say seven. That was Mr. Paraguay.
Okay, Mr. Paraguay.
Cars. Yeah.
So about 710
Right.
cars. Okay. So if during the peak hour, there are about 70 cars per hour, and there are about 15 hours of operation, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. What does the trip volume look like during off-peak hours that allows it to reach that total of 700 or so cars if the peak hour has about 70?
It's less than the peak, that's the point. Every other hour of the day, you can pick any snapshot, any other hour of the day, and it'll be less than 69 cars coming into McDonald's. We're using the morning as your example. Same thing with Speedwell Avenue. I do the counts and pick the busiest hour there, and I match them up, make them say that they happen at the same time. It might not be the case, it might be offset, but we're looking at the absolute worst case, so this way I know every other hour of the day, it's going to be some combination that's less.
Granting that between 0 and 70 is a pretty broad range. In order to add up to about 700 within those 15 hours, is it safe to say you probably need 50 to 60 cars at 6 a.m. and at 10 p.m. and at 1 p.m. and at 10 a.m. in order to add up to about 700?
I don't know, I never really thought about it that way, but it's less than the peak is the point.
Okay. Following that train of thought, I actually want to follow up on what Mr. Caravaggio asked last week. So if there are about 70 cars per hour at peak hours, and there are about 10 to 15 employees, as Mr. Duarte testified, during those peak hours, 10 on the regular shifts, we assume about $5 or $10 per car. This is sort of back of the envelope, sort of sanity check math. Where does the overhead, the utilities, the taxes, the franchise fees, what happens in the off-peak when there are fewer cars to generate the revenue that the 70 cars per hour at peak would have to add up to?
That's not a question for
That's not a question for him.
Okay. When you were analyzing your data, did you think in terms of these off-peak hours and having how the numbers would add up? Okay. How did you choose May 1st for the weekday observation?
Just check the school calendar, make sure school is open. You know, we get hired to do the traffic study, and when the plans are far enough along, we don't get too old, make a determination, and make sure we're going to get typical day.
Do you recall what the weather was that day?
I We don't go if it's snowing or, you know, if there's wild thunderstorms, you know, it has to be typical weather.
Do you know what time school lets out at Burrows School?
I have it in here somehow, I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, we checked all that.
Do you typically do only one observation date on a weekday, right? So the weekend is a different date. Do you typically do only one observation day per application?
Typically, yeah.
Is that industry standard?
Yes.
Okay. And you testified last week, you don't like statistics. Understand that? Have you come across the term statistical power?
I'm sorry, the term?
Statistical power.
I assume you're going to invite me.
No, I'm not testifying. I'm curious if the idea of multiple observations was something that you would have hoped to do, time allowing. Is that something that you want to incorporate into your practice?
We do make multiple observations. We only physically sit there for the full 2 hours, the guy with the board, one time to get the numbers, to get the data. Of course, they fluctuate from day to day. That's why we build in all these levels of conservative, assuming the peaks on the peak, using these ITE numbers that I testified to last time are higher than what McDonald's does. All of those things are built in to be conservative, but you're looking for the typical day. It would be disingenuous if I did my council on Thanksgiving, and it would the same way it would be disingenuous if I did my council on a day when there was a massive, you know, performance going on in town or something like that. We're looking for the typical day, and we build in conservative measures to make sure we cover those variables.
What you observed that day, approximately in each hour of observation, there were 1,400 cars. That's what you testified last week?
Two-way volume, yeah.
Two-way volume, okay, thank you. That's the next question. So that was in each direction?
Yeah, 1,300 to 1,400, about, yeah.
Okay.
Do you have a lot more? We have about 12 people behind you. Yes, you have a lot more.
So, your second observation on September 12th, did you use those numbers in the ITE trip generation algorithm? Of those?
The second observations were the gap study, so we weren't counting the volumes. We were measuring the gaps in traffic. So it was a different sort of thing.
So in Appendix D, where you have your gap analysis observations, that's what generated Table 6, the gap analysis. That's correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
There's a volume column, I think it's the second column in Appendix D. Is that, I assume, the number of cars?
No, it's not. We actually had a big debate on what that actually is in the office because we're not counting the volume when we do that. You're holding down buttons essentially when there's cars blocking the driveway and you're letting them go when there's not, and the machine's measuring the gaps. As you're holding it down, the thing's counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, even if it's just one car sitting there because they're backed up. So it's trying to estimate a volume, I guess, but it's not accurate. It's not a volume count. The volume counts are separate. I don't know why it does that. It's the software.
Okay.
It's a good question. It took us a little bit to figure out what was going on there too. We're doing these gap studies with these boards, but yeah, it's not. It's just a rolling count that's not real, I guess.
And there was, okay, I know my answer to my question. Does the ITE analysis, or did you in your report look into the effect of the road being near its capacity on these gaps?
Ask that again? I'm not sure I understood.
Is there a role of how close the road is to its capacity? How many cars are on the road at any given time? What effect that would have on the gaps? To use the
No, we're looking at the gaps when the road's at its busiest time.
in a hypothetical where there is additional traffic because of the the fact that some of the traffic is passed by and some of it is newly generated trips. If the road was to be close to its capacity, would, using the layman's term, would the traffic increase linearly or exponentially?
I don't understand the question. You mean, does the delay increase linearly or exponentially? It's really neither.
Correct. Would the gaps become smaller as the cars are sort of stacked?
Oh, that's closer together. Well, that also has to do with the speed you're traveling. But yeah, I mean, more cars are going to be less gaps. That's why we do the gap study.
Okay. And you said you didn't look at traffic speeds, right?
No, that's based on time.
So if traffic gets more compact, generally worse as you get closer to capacity, your gap analysis showed that that would not be the case because there's plenty of capacity left on our roads, specifically on Speedwell.
There's enough gaps in the traffic flow on Speedwell, thanks to the two traffic signals on either end to accommodate traffic exiting from McDonald's, more than enough to accommodate traffic exiting from McDonald's.
This is just a reminder for you and some of the other people who are asking questions. Off-site traffic is never grounds for denial of a permitted use application. Let me say that one more time. Off-site traffic is never grounds for denial of a permitted use application. So everyone could continue to ask questions on it. It's fine, Mr. Paraguay's here, but the off-site traffic is not really, although we have a traffic report we're required to submit, the off-site traffic is handled on the level of the governing body. When they allow a permitted use, they allow a permitted use because in their opinion, it can accommodate the use. I don't know if everyone knows that, but that's what the law is. But go ahead and continue.
Last question, actually. Given what you've observed outside of the traffic observation, in this room, in the zeitgeist of Morris Plains, how do you reconcile what you observed with what you're hearing, what you observed on Speedwell with what you're hearing now?
How do you mean?
Why do you think that there is a discrepancy between your observed numbers and our lived experience?
I haven't heard anybody say they've done a gap study or these capacity analysis. I mean, I'm not saying that Speedwell Avenue is no traffic. It's a busy, congested road. There's no doubt about it. That's why we do all these studies to make sure that it can accommodate this redevelopment of this piece of property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Tom Battaglise, Battagliese, 2 Cutler Road. So last week you stated on parking that there are 30 physical parking spaces. You said there were two credits for the EVs. So I believe there are 5 parking spots reserved for delivery vehicles like Grubhub and so forth. So that would bring it down to 25 spots for customers coming in to have capacity. And then we were told that there would be up to 12 employees that could be on during peak hours. And when a truck is there unloading, you have the potential to block 3 to 4 parking spots. So if all employees need a spot and there's a truck unloading, doesn't that mean there's only about 10 parking spaces available for customers, or if there's no truck, 13, as opposed to the 30 that you're talking about?
That's specific, I guess maybe. All I know is that we use research data of parking counts of actual parked cars, whether they're an Uber guy or an employee or whatever, physical number of parked cars. And based on all that statistical data from the ITE, I don't know how many restaurants, fast food restaurants they've studied, and based on my studies, there's way more parking than is necessary here. 30 would be more than enough.
All right. To that point, I know, so you were looking at statistical analysis that showed less than a 1% chance, 0.012, whatever it was, of running out of parking space and drive-through capacity, so you had less than 1% for both of those scenarios.
Not the parking. The drive-through queue extending beyond the capacity under that crosswalk.
Okay.
1%.
What was the percent chance then on the parking?
There's no study for the percent chance, but in my opinion, 0.
Okay, so there was some discussion last time about Central Park that we have right around the corner. Your traffic study didn't take that conveniently, in my opinion, overlooked this fact. And at times of the day, you have, tons of cars, potential buses coming off with lots of hungry kids that would probably like to go to McDonald's. So does your statistical model, cover something like that? I know you were talking about Rahway and the busiest regional McDonald's and so forth. I don't think there's a sports complex in that area, so I think that's the concern here with the, with the traffic, the drive-through overflows when we have situations like that. It's not just a once-a-year celebration or whatever, as you were alluding to before. This is constant during the, the nice weather season, sports season, basically.
Yeah, and again, we're looking at a typical day, and we build in several levels of conservative assessments in our analysis to account for those sorts of variations and deviations. It's all accounted for. And who knows, May 1st, maybe there was something at that sports complex, I wouldn't know. Can you tell me?
I don't think at those times that, I think that's the concern. So it is actually a typical situation that hasn't been brought into the model here. So what would happen if we have cars coming from Central Park and then you have a spillover onto the traffic? Now we're talking about traffic building up on Speedwell, or?
Your traffic engineer asked me that the last time, in the unusual case where the drive-through was backed up, what would happen? And I said people wouldn't move on, they'd go to a different McDonald's, they'd go park, they wouldn't sit in the drive-through. I mean, how badly do you want chicken nuggets that you sit in the middle of the road?
That's your opinion though, right?
It's just reasonable.
He's an expert, so that's what he's here for. He's here to give his opinions. I'm sorry, what's the problem?
Have you ever been driving down some road and see a drive-through backing out onto a highway?
Maybe Chick-fil-A, but not McDonald's.
Okay. So it's still not clear to me what would happen if a bus arrives. Again, from the Central Park, we get buses, many buses that come out at a time from tracks and soccer meets and so forth.
Sir, that question's been asked several times.
I know, and it still hasn't been answered.
Well, then that's all. Then you've got your answer, because he's testified to this in the prior hearing a couple times. They had questions about buses.
This is the first time I've come up to address
No,
this.
but I'm saying the question of buses has been asked at least 2 or 3 times. And if you don't like the answer, I'm sorry, but he's answered it. You're not entitled to the answer you want. He gave you the answer that he testified to.
Can you repeat the answer, because I'm sorry.
He doesn't have to repeat it.
If I could please don't. Okay, please don't everybody yell. We know, as I said at the beginning, go back to that. I know there's interest in it. Please, there's 2 people talking, let them talk. Don't just, you wouldn't do that in a courtroom. You wouldn't do that there. Have respect for people over here. Don't just shut people down. Really appreciate it. Take it down. Just let the 2 people that are speaking. I'm not going to jump into this, but the question and the concern about children in school buses, where they would go and how many has been raised. If they want to, one more time, but it has been. But that's what please respect everybody.
Are buses allowed in the lot? I still don't have an answer. It seems like no one else remembers either, so maybe you could refresh our mind.
No, the site is not designed to accommodate buses.
Okay, so what happens if a bus comes up to the lot?
They'll have to find someplace else to park. A bus is not going to come into the site. The bus drivers know where they can take the bus and where they can't.
Okay. Another question that's been put off, this you told me that, Mr. Vitoli told me to ask the traffic engineer here, so about fire and emergency vehicles. If a truck is unloading, can you please explain on this diagram here where fire trucks would park? There's no emergency zone that's been designated, it appears. How would they have safe access to?
If a fire truck had to come onto the site to fight a fire, in either of the drive aisles it could park.
You know, if a truck is unloading,
It's not gonna park in a parking space, it's too big.
I understand that. But there's no fire zone, there's no designated loading zone. You're telling me that this is safe if there's an emergency to allow emergency vehicles as large as fire trucks into the lot.
That's what I'm telling you, yes.
Are you able to depict that with the software that you use here, maybe for the next meeting?
We depicted a tractor trailer, which is bigger and less maneuverable than a fire truck, so it can make it the fire truck, yeah.
Can you bring the picture up with the tractor trailer? So please explain to me where the fire truck would go if there's the trucks are the truck is in the back there.
Oh, you're saying the fire truck comes on the site at the same time the truck is delivering, and the delivery driver doesn't evacuate the fire and just leaves the truck, it can still fit because this is all open pavement back here.
That's the drive-through area, right?
Right. So cars are getting food at the drive-through while the building's burning, is that the scenario? I mean,
Isn't there overhead things that have a certain clearance on the drive-through?
yeah, and if the building's on fire, the truck will break them down if they have to.
This application was sent to the fire department, and they had no comments on the site plan or any of the movements. So, if they did have comments, the fire department, we would absolutely address them, and we would make it exactly how they wanted. But they didn't have any comments.
I understand the fire department can't make an official decision until after the final design is approved. Is that not the case?
No.
So do you have a statement from the fire department that shows?
Yes.
It was.
They have the statement that says no comments, and it's written right on the page. No comments.
So, are you familiar with Morris Plains Ordinance Chapter 13, Article 4.14, that describes fire zone requirements for land development? Don't you have to comply with that code?
Apparently not, if the fire department didn't ask for it.
Could you please get a specific response to that for the next meeting from the fire department in writing?
We have it in writing. From the fire department reviewed the plans and confirmed they don't have any comments.
I'll hop in, I'm not testifying at all. All applications, all site plan applications go to the police department and to the fire department. And to the extent that there is anything in the record, he didn't testify as to it, but I'm sure that anything that would be in the record, we could have a copy of it next time. But they all go, and uniformly, one of the conditions, whenever the board votes, is you always have to comply with whatever the police department wants and whatever the fire department wants. That's always a condition.
Are you familiar with this fire regulation? Is anybody familiar here with it? Because
There's only one person here.
I understand that it
Please let me speak.
Okay.
There's only one person you can ask questions to. The expert.
So can you kindly look into that fire regulation because it discusses fire zone requirements for land development?
I'm not a fire expert, your fire department is, and they're okay with it, the way it is.
Okay. Can we get the official statement from the fire department because we don't have record of that?
It's in the record. It was issued by the fire department. It's available to you. You can send a request in to get a copy of it. And we'll bring a copy next meeting. You have it. Josh, let me see that, please. Thank you. Josh has everything. He's amazing. This is a letter dated June 7, 2024. This is from Burrows, Morris Plains. And I'll read it into the record. In accordance with section 13-6.301 of the land development norms, the above listed application is being sent to your office for report and recommendation. Should you wish to comment on this application, please reply to this office by June 21, 2024. It is addressed to Mr. Phil Wolf, Fire Subcode Official for Morris Plains. And then Mr. Wilk writes on this document, reviewed 6/11/24, no comments, and then he signed it. That's the record.
It says reviewed, but this is not the final design, correct? So
No, listen, you're gonna have to ask the fire chief. This says no comments. In land use lingo, they have no comments to the application, no recommendations, pursuant to code, whatever. They didn't, he just said no comments. To us, that's a clean bill of health. But if you have follow-ups, by all means, contact the fire department.
okay, and if we do that and bring that into the next meeting with the planner, for instance, that's acceptable in terms of process?
I'm gonna hop in, Mr. Vitale probably was too indulgent. Questions go to the witness, that's it. He didn't testify about fire lines. You can ask him anything you want on his testimony in the report, but please let me speak. And if you want to bring in anything, if you want to have an expert, or if you want to bring in, and I mean this truthfully, if there is something for you to bring to the board's attention when it's time for you to give testimony, by all means do, but you can only ask the witness what he did testify to and what is in his report.
Okay, thank you, that was my question, thanks.
Thank you.
Dave Burrows, B-U-R-R-O-W-S, 24 WF. I'm curious about how many food delivery drivers, Uber Eats, DoorDash, et cetera, you anticipate at this location per day.
I don't have that breakdown.
Does anybody generate that? Have that data?
I don't know. The more the better. Those Uber Eats drivers are picking up multiple orders, so they're taking traffic off the road and taking parking needs away too.
Respectfully disagree, because you're also thinking about speed and time and getting to the next delivery. Do you know the geographic delivery area for this location for each driver? Because and the reason I ask that question is I think that's attracting traffic to the site.
No, I don't know.
At peak time, if I'm traveling southbound on Speedwell Ave and I want a Happy Meal, how long would I have to wait to make a left turn onto the property?
That left turn movement is about 10-second delay. That's southbound.
During peak times? I've got my Happy Meal now. At peak time, how long would it take me to exit the site and return southbound on?
To make the left out, at the worst peak, it's 47 seconds on average. It might take you a minute, or it might take you no time, but the average will be 47 seconds.
I know you've studied vehicle traffic, but did you take into consideration or generate any estimates on how many children from the school across the street will walk to the site?
I believe it's an elementary school, so hopefully they do walking with their parents.
Please, let one person speak at a time. It's court reporter, we need to have one person. I appreciate it, thank you. Go ahead.
It's an elementary school, so presumably they'd be walking with their parents to the McDonald's, but the ITD statistics I testified to the last time said about 10 pedestrian trips in an hour for a store of this size, not necessarily all coming across the street, but 10 walkers from the area.
Would your analysis change if you were aware that it was a elementary and middle school?
No, it's not my analysis, it's the IT's analysis.
I'd like some specifics on the signal system on the relocated crosswalk, what specifically that looks like, what the duration is for a pedestrian to be able to cross while that flashes, or...
Sure, it's similar to...
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you have any drawings or anything specific?
It's in the site. The drawings are in the materials that we submitted, so they're available for your review if you'd like to go see what they look like. Go ahead.
Do you want me to describe it? It's similar. You see the pedestrian signs that are down there now. Right? It's like a yellow time and shade sign, turns by logging, same type of sort of sign as that with an arrow pointing down to show you where the crosswalk is. But there's two black bars that have LED lights in them. Totally dark normally. When you get to the crosswalk and going across, you push a button and those flash and you get the attention of drivers that, hey, somebody's trying to cross the street.
And do you have any data, can you refer us to any efficacy studies on how effective those?
Yeah, the Federal Highway Administration put out a fact sheet on them. I actually printed it because I thought that would be interesting. But they increase yield rates by up to 98%. So drivers are supposed to stop for pedestrians, but they may not necessarily see the little orange flags that you guys have there now. They're going to see these flashing lights, this wider crosswalk that's got to be lit to certain standards. It's going to be the state-of-the-art unsignalized crossing.
And can you submit your studies that we would be able to review? The statistics that you have are based on?
Oh, they're not, it's the Federal Highway
data, some
Administration.
sort of study.
It's the Federal Highway Administration. You can just Google it. That's what I did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Schroeder, 97 Maple Avenue. I had some follow-up questions just to your questions about the ITE and their methodology. So exactly how does the ITE account for the proximity of a school to this site? I think I heard you just say that they take into account only the size of the building and the nature of the use, is that right?
Right.
Okay. So what data points, my general understanding about the ITE calculations is that you're plugging in some variables and it's spitting out these trip generation estimates. So what are the variables that you plug in other than the size of the building and the nature of the use?
For this particular, it's the size of the building and the use. That's it.
Okay. Is it true that much of the data underlying those ITE estimates is voluntarily submitted by volunteers?
Yeah, by traffic engineers.
And is it true that some of that data is quite old, even from like the 1980s and 1990s?
Yep.
And does that affect your confidence in the trip generation estimates?
Yeah, I mean, we've done our own in this area and find that the ITE numbers are too high, but.
So you're not controlling for any local realities of our town, not even the size of our population or the number of commuters that are cutting through our town?
No, I looked at the worst case scenario, the full ITE numbers, even though I think the reality will be less than those. And that's another way of being conservative, like I mentioned before, to account for variations in traffic flow.
So the numbers that are getting used to calculate the trip generation estimates for our area are pulled nationwide? Are they also pulled internationally?
Nationwide. There might be some Canada data points of North America.
Okay. So observations and data about what happens, say, in Montana is going to be carried over and applied to what we could expect here in New Jersey.
Yep, that's why it pushes the numbers high. A lot less transit and cabs and Uber Eats in Montana.
What do you think gives a better indicator of what we could expect in terms of cars entering and exiting this site? The ITE trip generation estimates that are informed by this very old and general data that's not informed by our region characteristics, or actual numbers that could be provided by McDonald's based on its experience running 14,000 restaurants in the United States?
I think the numbers provided by McDonald's will be more accurate, but as traffic engineers, we're bound to use the higher numbers from the ITE. Again, being conservative.
The population is
time period that was evaluated.
Yes.
Did it occur to you to generate data for a time that would overlap with school dismissal?
No, because the traffic volumes at McDonald's during school dismissal are much lower. Again, I'm not analyzing the speed of 11, I'm analyzing this McDonald's.
Sure. But don't you think that, given that the school actually has students up through 8th grade, wouldn't you think that that would increase the number of pedestrians that you counted?
It probably might, and that's why we're making these big improvements to the pedestrian crossing to make it safer.
I think he's just for the future witnesses, he's testifying about the school pedestrians and any increase a couple times now, so.
So the ITE rates do not account for the new luxury apartments that are being built on Route 10 or any other development?
The ITE rates, no.
How would you confirm that the 2% growth rate was appropriate in view of our local circumstances?
It's published by New Jersey DOT by county and roadway type.
Okay, but is there any calculus that goes into evaluating whether you should apply a higher growth rate given our local development?
Yes, that's why we ask if there's any specific local developments that are being built in the immediate vicinity that would have an impact. We would want to account for them, and there's not.
But I think I read in your report that you concluded that there are no developments. Okay.
Well, I didn't conclude it. That was the borough told me.
Okay, okay. So there wasn't any information given to you about the new apartments that are being constructed on Route 10 or the new affordable housing that's coming?
He's answered that
That's
question.
all part of the 2%.
I'm
That's
just
probably.
making sure. Can you give an example of what would merit a higher growth rate?
If New Jersey DOT changed the numbers, which they actually did recently, it was lower. If I did this study a year ago, it would have been 1% rate.
You said before that these trip generations are averages, right? That was your explanation for collecting data on one day over the span of 2 hours, right? And you said that that's just an average.
Two different things. The ITE numbers are the average peak. So the busiest hour at several, in this case I just looked, it's 96 different fast food restaurants they looked at. The busiest hour, the average of the busiest hour of those. Yeah.
So with the understanding that this is just the average, and I think you concluded that it's a level of service E,
On Saturday, yeah.
right? How much margin is there between that level and level of service F?
And this three more seconds. 50 seconds is an F, and this is a 47. But that's why we do that's why we look at the queuing and the gap studies, because we want to test every possible scenario.
Did you consult with members of the Morris Plains Traffic Safety Committee to better understand our local traffic conditions?
No.
And your study doesn't account for the McDonald's corporate strategy for increasing delivery and drive-through?
No.
Are you aware of the crosswalk enforcement study that was performed by our local police officer on August 27th, during which it stopped 42 motor vehicles for failing to yield to pedestrians, and during which it observed over 100 violations that it could not stop all of them?
I didn't see that.
If you had been aware of that study, would that have impacted your conclusions?
It did. That's why the crosswalk too. That's why we're putting the beacons. We're trying to fix that.
Oh, I thought that was a DOT recommendation.
No, it was a borough recommendation because of that study. And DOT has to allow us to do it. It's their road, and they were in favor of it.
Trying not discrepancy between the, I don't know if you said 710 and somebody said 700 to 800. I can't keep track who testified to what. But we have this range of expected transactions a day.
The 710 is the number of cars.
Okay.
The 700 to 800 is transactions.
Okay.
So, you know, some people are going to walk and they won't take a car. Some people have 3 people in a car that each make a separate transaction. So it fits right in.
Have you attempted with whoever is the keeper of the information for McDonald's, have you attempted to square that with their prior sworn testimony in another planning board hearing in Illinois that the average McDonald's does 1,000 transactions a day?
That may be the case in average McDonald's, sure.
Okay.
This one would be less than the average. It's up at 700 to 800. That's what they're projecting, I guess.
You said that, I'm not asking you to testify about every single one of the 31 sites that you've studied, but you did mention that that's part of your expertise is understanding traffic patterns. Would you say, comparing this site to those 31, would you expect this site to be below average?
Yes.
In the business that it transacts?
Yes.
So there was no sort of school safety that was considered in your report, right?
He's been asked that a couple times.
Okay.
Even tonight, he was asked that.
Do you think that the increased usage of app-based delivery orders can be expected to drive up the traffic counts beyond what ITE would predict?
He was just asked that by the last person over the microphone.
It's hard to hear back there.
That's fine.
You testified at the last hearing about the ordinance that's excluding trucks from Dayton, and you gave a testimony about how that ordinance would be interpreted.
How it's written, I mean, it specifically says that in so many words, local deliveries are exempt.
It sounded to me like it was a legal interpretation, and I guess I just wanted to be sure that the scope of your expertise here is for traffic, not as a legal expert, is that correct?
Yes. That's it.
And did you consult with your attorney on the proper legal interpretation of that ordinance?
I'm not his attorney, and if I was his attorney, I'd instruct him not to answer that. But I'm not his attorney, so he was giving his opinion as a traffic engineer. He was not rendering a legal opinion. I can assure you of that.
So you don't have any understanding of the underlying drivers of that ordinance, or what were the concerns being managed?
No, I just read it.
Were you made aware of the 2011 traffic study that was conducted, I believe, for Hanover Avenue?
No.
I just want to ask about the Chatham, Madison, and Morristown stores. Are those stores where you took data?
I'm sorry, the witness.
In Chatham, Madison, and Morristown, are those any of the sites where you collected your data?
None of those ring a bell. No.
I think at the last meeting you talked about if there's a queue into Speedwell, a car that wants to park could just pull in. Is there room for that to happen? waiting in line onto Speedwell for the drive-through, and somebody says, well, I want to go in, but I'll park, is there actually room to accommodate that? Or if there's a queue, is entry completely blocked?
It would depend how they were stacked up. Could be blocked.
And is it typical that McDonald's doesn't share its business information with its experts that might be relevant to the expert?
Don't answer that. That's not a question for me.
I think he's worked on multiple McDonald's applications.
He's not going to testify about McDonald's internal policies about sharing information. He doesn't work for McDonald's.
I think that's it.
Thank you.
Laurie Cama, C-A-M-A, last name, 12 Lindabury Lane, Morris Plains. In the traffic study testimony last week, you mentioned you only shared data about just a handful of traffic accidents in the last year on Speedwell Avenue, for that Speedwell corridor. Did your study consider how much traffic would be diverted to Mountain Way Drive, Glenbrook Road, Hillview Avenue, Stiles Avenue, or Grannis Avenue to accommodate the additional volume?
No.
Okay. Did your research also reveal that there were over 300 traffic accidents in Morris Plains last year?
No, I asked for this specific location.
Okay. So how will this anticipated volume of over 700 customers a day turning in and out of the proposed property help the Morris Plains Police Department to achieve their goal of reducing traffic accidents to under 200 per year?
It will help by eliminating a driveway on Speedwell Avenue, less access points, by adding a do not block the box at Dayton Road as well, and by providing a much better pedestrian crossing. So all safety improvements are being made.
Okay, so primarily you'd be concerned about the ability for customers to turn in and out of McDonald's. Is that what you're saying? In terms of just that immediate surrounding area, it would add an element of safety? Is that your statement?
Yes.
Okay. Not related to any traffic being diverted to other streets, correct?
I don't see why traffic would be diverted to other streets.
Okay. So in addition to the new crosswalk and solutions that you're proposing to mitigate danger for the high volume of pedestrian traffic, not only crossing across Speedwell Avenue, but also just using the sidewalks in that area at peak times in the school schedule. Are you aware that in other towns where drive-thrus were placed in heavy pedestrian areas, some towns required local police to stand on duty to direct traffic?
I've never encountered that situation in New Jersey.
Has this type of solution been discussed with the Morris Plains Police Department, to your knowledge?
They reviewed and gave us comments that we've incorporated into the plans.
So there are no, just to clarify, there are no discussions with Morris Plains Police about additional oversight during school hours of the sidewalks in the area to supplement the crosswalk?
No.
At the last meeting, you shared your traffic study looked into the current wait time to turn onto Speedwell Avenue from Dayton Road. Did your study assess the wait time on East Hanover during peak hours to turn onto Speedwell Avenue?
No.
And the backups there? Okay. Or the wait time to enter downtown Morris Plains from Littleton Avenue? Okay. How will the presence of a drive-through restaurant with these volumes entering this portion of Speedwell Avenue impact the current wait times in those areas coming from East Hanover Road or coming from Littleton Avenue?
Very minimally, they look far away.
Do you have data on that? You just mentioned you didn't study those wait times. Do you have data to back up?
Yeah, typically you get concerned about an impact on that. I mentioned this last year, an impact on an intersection that experiences 100 or more additional trips. Those intersections, there's other places for people to turn off. They're going to split 50-50 up and down Speedwell Avenue, so the traffic from this McDonald's is so diluted by the time it gets there, it's not even close to that. barely a number here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam Dise-Moran, Dise-Moran, 7 Hillview Avenue. I just like 2 sentences about me because I feel like this is not human. A lot of things. I'm a teacher at Burrows School and I live on Hillview Avenue, so I can see the site from my front yard when I step outside. So this is one reason why it's very important to me, and I'm trying to think.
I'm jealous of
Traffic
you.
and not get emotional, I know, right? Anyway, so yeah, no, I walk. My daughter uses my car to go to high school, so anyway. But, and I'm gonna clarify a few things because this is all new to me. So as a teacher, and especially getting through the pandemic, we experienced a lot of like policy versus actual practice. But just to confirm that with the policy, like the gentleman here was saying, that you're required to look at site traffic and not area land usage, like it's predisposed to say that if it's an allowed use, the town is already saying that they don't care about the area traffic, it's just that block, like that you look at?
I don't think that they're saying that they don't care about it, but the presumption is that the town permitted this use because the traffic can handle it. We're not asking to put something here that generates more traffic than the town says is okay to put here.
Okay, but so that's on that. And then, so just in terms of me, like I'm a cut-through street, Hillview, people cut through back and forth one way, and you know, like we're the ones who would absorb some of that fly-by traffic and extra parking and anything like that. All right, so, and just to confirm, you had said the growth rate you used was 2%?
Yes.
And that's an industry, because it's an industry standard, so it does, I know this has been said before, this doesn't allow for this particularly like higher growth in this area, it's just what you use because of policy.
It's New Jersey DOT, New Jersey policy.
New Jersey
It's not
standard,
national
okay. And then again, just to confirm, there's no, just as worded differently, and I don't understand all this stuff. The local development plan, zoning changes, the addition of 160 plus low-income housing, none of that gets incorporated into your study?
It does, it's part of that growth rate.
It's part of that growth rate is supposed to allow that. All right. Did you account for, and how did you account for public transit usage in your projections?
I didn't, I assume everybody's driving. I didn't take any credits for people taking the bus or anything like that. Might do that in an urban area, but not here.
But I feel like with the parking comments, weren't they saying that they thought that a lot of the employees might take public transit to get to work, and that's why you didn't need as much parking?
That's not what I said. That's the reality of McDonald's.
I feel like I've been here for a lot of hours living, so I thought I heard that. Okay. Did you account for the potential impact of telecommuting or remote work trends, like people working from home and then leaving in the middle of the day to get out for lunch? Like a higher number, you don't allow for it. The lunchtime doesn't, that's why you don't do anything. Lunchtime doesn't have a trend of peaking any.
The McDonald's will have a peak at lunchtime, but Speedwell is not as busy at lunchtime.
I haven't observed that, but I'm not a traffic expert. From my house to the school, I have observed it's pretty busy. And I know the 3 p.m. thing's been mentioned, but the kids go would, yeah, anyway, I had to ask a question. Okay. Do navigation systems with restaurant suggestions affect your trip? Things like GPS, like Waze and maps, when they're looking for a nearby restaurant, does that factor into the studies at all? No?
No.
All right, can't read my handwriting, but I think that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Craig Ring, 7 Hillview Avenue. I know people have asked a lot of questions regarding the traffic signal. Just a quick question for you. There's no, if someone goes through the traffic light, there's nothing traffic, like they're not technically breaking the law. There's no ticket being issued for that if someone does that. Like, is there a ramification for that?
Yeah, failure to yield to a pedestrian at a crosswalk is against the law.
No, okay. My question is, so, as I said, I'm on Hillview right across the street. This morning, guy looking down at his phone didn't see me, didn't see him, just blew right through the intersection. If someone standing right in the middle of the intersection is not going to prevent someone from going through the intersection, how necessarily is a traffic light going to stop someone from going through the intersection?
Well, that's exactly the idea, that the guy looking down at his phone has a good see the little orange flag, but when something starts flashing, it catches their attention. That's the idea of it, to be more aware.
And at last meeting and this meeting, you've made multiple references to like a typical business day or typical weekday, and you have your set times, the 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. I understand that. Those were industry standards, you said, correct? The times that were used. Is there anything, and you said 1 day is typical for the study to be used?
1 day of actual counts. We'll visit the location multiple times during peak hours, and I've had enough experience that I can tell if the counters, traffic volumes are not consistent with what I'm seeing, but the actual data collection is just 1 day.
So for this one, someone was there on other days as well to do it, in addition to the 1 day where it was in the traffic report?
I personally have been many times to look at traffic conditions.
Okay, but in terms of something being presented as evidence, there's just the 1 day, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If it's 1 day out of 5 for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon, have you ever used more than 1 day when doing an actual written document traffic report?
Yeah, for things that generate a lot of traffic, we occasionally have to do more. DOT requires the 2 counts, the 24-hour counts, for things that generate enough traffic that they be concerned about. This is not.
Prior to your issuing the traffic report, did you observe other days that were not included in the report?
Yeah, I've been to the site several times and working up the plans with Mr. Clark, and every night we've been here, I go and he just check things out. It's been plenty of times.
But why wouldn't that be submitted into the report as further documentation to help to prove the validity or the legitimacy of a traffic report?
Well, I didn't do data collection.
That's what I was asking. Okay, so, answer my question. Thank you.
Hi, Stephanie Carr, C-A-R-R, 33 Maple Avenue in Mars Plains. May I please clarify that peak hours for you are the standard McDonald's peak hours and not based on research of comings and goings of the local community?
No, they're based on general roadway peak hours.
General roadway peak hours.
Yeah. New Jersey DOT has an extensive traffic counting program throughout the state, and the peak hours invariably are these.
Have you taken into account large influxes of pedestrians in the area at what McDonald's may not consider peak hours or what the DOT may not consider peak hours, attempting to cross Speedwell at that crosswalk from after-school sporting events at Burrows and also from Simon's Park, which is straight down from Hillview?
Yeah, absolutely. Those beacons will work 24 hours a day, not just during peak hours.
Okay. So to sort of add on to that, you testified just earlier this evening that traffic speeds were not pertinent to the traffic study.
Correct.
And then you're saying the crosswalk will be safer with the blinking lights. I'm not a traffic expert, but would you agree that speed is generally pertinent to the safety of a crosswalk? Like the rate of speed that people travel?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm just curious why speed was not accounted for in your traffic study?
We're not, the crosswalk's there, we're making it better. We're not adding a crosswalk. If I was doing a study to say, should I add a new crosswalk someplace, then I would.
Right, well, but it's being moved and it's also,
Yeah, sure, yeah.
you know, being moved to serve a new facility, so. And I'm curious, since the last meeting, I think this was asked of you at the last meeting, but have you personally attempted to cross on foot that crosswalk at Speedwell?
No, somebody asked me that the last one. I was thinking of the times I've been out there, I don't think I've actually walked across.
us.
You might want to try to do that. Thank you.
Jill Cecere, 11 Yungher.
You say your name again?
Jill Cecere, C-E-C-E-R-E. Out of your, I believe you said 31 traffic studies for locations in the area, have any of them ever concluded that adding whatever the proposed building was would be a negative impact?
Of these McDonald's? No, all of these McDonald's were done because it had a single drive-through lane that we were converting to a double drive-through lane. Of the thousands of traffic studies I've done, have I ever made recommendations to offset negative impacts? Yeah, sure. The final report is always going to say that everything works because we did this, this, and this. I'm not going to.
Right, that's what
I'm not going to tell my client what they have to do to fix the problems. Yeah.
An ideal location because of the traffic in any of those places.
Yeah, sure, that's happened.
Oh, you have.
Yeah, and we make recommendations for what they would need to do.
Okay. You keep on referencing the beacons and making it safer. It's my understanding that the beacons were coming regardless. Been to town council meetings. I know that this was something in place. It's the moving of the crosswalk that's coming because of the result of proposed McDonald's.
Yes.
But the beacons they will come regardless.
Maybe.
Yeah, he's not qualified to answer that.
Well, he continually says that we're improving with the beacons, and that clearly isn't a McDonald's improvement.
Yeah, they're paying for it.
I beg to differ. If McDonald's doesn't come, they're still coming, and McDonald's isn't paying for it.
Exactly, so it's one for McDonald's, so they get more than paid for it.
And you say that the traffic study is not only the traffic study on Stable Avenue, but it's also the flow on site of the traffic.
Yeah, I'm looking at how this corner is going to operate primarily with the McDonald's there.
Right, but the flow of the traffic within the site is also part of the traffic study.
Yeah, oh yes, sorry, I understand.
I know, I'm probably going to get cut off, but is there a distance, is in the design where the delivery truck would come and the drive-through, is that curbing or is that just a grassy area? Like, how does it differentiate the drive-through lanes towards the back of the building and the free-flowing traffic where people want to go and park and walk?
I don't know, what are you asking?
I'm sorry. The drive-through lanes, is there some kind of barrier that separates them from the free-flowing traffic, like the yellow line?
They're striping and they're made of concrete, so the pavement texture will look different. There's no physical barrier.
So if you're in the drive-through and you decide you don't want to go through the drive-through, you could easily just exit.
Top out.
It's just blacktop.
Yes.
And what is the distance between the drive-through lane and the back parking lot space? Like the beginning of the parking lot spaces and that last drive-through?
Just the drive out?
Right. But basically where the yellow is, what is that distance?
20 feet.
That's 20 feet, and delivery trucks, I understand from my research, and maybe I'm wrong, are about the width of 8.5 feet. And then if a car wants to get by, an average car, 6.5 to 7 feet.
No, average car is 5.5 to 6 feet.
And I'm sorry, an average SUV, which seems to be big.
Right, it's the only car that's 7 feet, passenger car that's 7 feet is a Hummer.
We've been over this one a bunch of times.
Well, look, I didn't have the numbers. I know I asked a similar question. I didn't have the numbers of the distance. And I'm just really concerned or if a bus comes through and realizes they can't, the space, I just don't see it, but I'll let that slide. And the average, you were saying 710 cars or customers per day. And then Mr. Patola came in at the last meeting after his consulting with a representative from McDonald's and said 700 to 800. Who is that representative?
Transactions, I think.
Or transactions, I'm sorry. Who was that representative? Were they sworn in?
Why would they need?
I gotta hop in.
He's giving numbers.
Please. The only opportunity you have, and you can argue later on, you're not allowed to question Mr. Dolan. It has to go to the witness testimony. Anything, Mr.
I apologize.
Please.
I just felt that he
I know,
came in
but
and
please,
gave us
but you're not listening. It has to be questions to the witness, okay? Has to be questions to this witness. He's not a witness. Has to be questions, cross-examination to this person.
Okay, I apologize. But if he could interject another.
Again, it has to be questions
I
to this
apologize.
witness.
So the 710, you said was a number that you came up with your study, and that McDonald's just agreed with that.
The ITE projections that I.
And have they ever been
came out
wrong?
710.
Have the ITE numbers been wrong before?
Yeah, they're always too high.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break. We're going to be back in 10 minutes.
So, all mics are off. All microphones are off.
Angela Lewis, 126 Glenbrook Road.
That was made that we have no right to consider traffic since this is a use that's permitted. Is that correct?
I don't always agree with the attorneys that are here, but yes, but it comes to this way, and it bears a minute and a half of explanation. When a governing body changes zoning or does the zoning, they've decided some should be residential, some should be commercial, some should be manufacturing. Part of that consideration takes into account what are going to be the impacts of those uses. Obviously, not everyone here is talking impact of a use can be traffic. So the courts have said the decision on a permitted use, on what uses should be permitted, necessarily includes the governing body's decision that the traffic will be okay. They decided it. The planning board has limited jurisdiction. The planning board that denied an application because of the estimate of the increased traffic it would generate will be denied, will be reversed every single time by court. You do not have, this board does not have jurisdiction or power to deny an application based upon increased traffic if it's a permitted use. That's the simple one. Cases have made that pretty clear.
So just to circle back about the school buses or any kind of buses, I know you said that they cannot be accommodated in there, but is there going to be any type of signage or any way to actually prevent them from turning in? And the reason I think we're all asking this is because we know what goes on at Central Park where the tournaments and the fields are, and dozens and dozens of buses on any given day are coming there, are coming down Hanover Avenue from there. So what will be done to make sure that that they don't try to turn in and then jam up everything in return?
When the bus pulls in, there's no bus parking on the side. And they can physically traverse, obviously because the tractor trailer can through, but there's no place where they don't have bus parking.
So are they going to be encouraged or discouraged from turning in? Will there be signage? Will there be, no buses permitted, anything like that?
I don't know why a bus driver would assume that this is the only McDonald's that I've ever seen that has bus parking.
Well,
They don't
we're
have bus
close to
parking.
a couple different highways that they're probably going to be getting on, so.
So there's been McDonald's in 14,000 in the country.
So the answer is no,
I've never
there's
seen
nothing
a bus
like
Can
parking.
you let him finish, please?
I've never seen a McDonald's with bus parking. I don't know why a bus driver would assume that this one had it.
So there's nothing to discourage. If they turn in, they turn in, they can jam up the lot even further.
No, they could circulate through, they wouldn't jam up a lot.
But
There's
there's
no place to park.
no concessions, nothing that will be done to prevent them or discourage them.
I don't know what we could do.
Signage.
You want a no bus sign? Yeah, I'm sure we could do that. I don't think DOT would allow that, but sure.
And then, with regard to orders that aren't fulfilled in like whatever the amount of time they're supposed to be, and they're asked to pull over to the side, where does that happen, and how does that affect the flow of the rest of the drive-through?
It's these spaces usually after the last window.
Are there certain ones that are just assigned just for that purpose, or are they shared with like the delivery and the other things, or?
They're numbered. I don't know if they're, they could be shared, but, the person at the window can look over and see space number 1 or 2 or 3 is available.
So can you just explain how that works? So you pull, your order's not ready in time, you're told to pull into one of those spots over there. And first of all, where would they be when they have to pull into one of those spots? At what point are they told that?
The pickup window.
Which window?
Well, depending on if they're using the third window or not, one of these 2 windows, wherever they pick up the food, depending on the time of day, they're told to pull forward.
So are they gonna be able to get into one of those spots?
Sure.
They're not already past them?
From your cars here, you can get into this spot. From this window, you can get into the first 4 spots.
And then how does it work? Does someone come out of the store and bring their food, and they have to cross through?
Yeah, somebody runs out.
So how often does that usually happen? No data on that at all? Is that something we could we're just trying to, how many spots will be taken up?
Oh, it's very infrequent. The goal is, I'm sure, for McDonald's for it to never happen, but, you know, things happen, so they would have a contingency.
And how many?
It's more so if somebody has a very large order, and there's small orders behind them, not all of the other people. But sometimes it's like, it's not ready. It happens.
So if they just hypothetically happen to be filled up and then DoorDash or whoever comes, and those are their spots too, right? Those same spots. So where do they then? Where are they? Are they gonna be just like pulled up on the side? Are they allowed to park in any of the other spots? Delivery.
Those spots on the side that are reserved for the delivery vehicles. And I mean, theoretically, they can park in any parking space. And I don't think anybody's gonna notice, but yeah.
Well, they would have to actually come around, right?
Yeah, this has become a typical layout for McDonald's, so presumably the DoorDash and Uber Eats people will visit another McDonald's to kind of know where the parking.
And those numbers for DoorDash or any kind of delivery are all part of the transaction number?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
that you're estimating? Okay. The rest of my questions were asked, so thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Karl Ring, Dayton Road, 22 Dayton Road, last name is Ring, R-I-N-G. So we talked a little bit about some of the improvements and things that you guys have taken into account. Just out of curiosity, in addition to kind of light up roadway, crosswalk, is there anything else, in your expert opinion, that could be done to make that crosswalk safer?
No.
There's nothing else beyond
Removing it, I think
adding
we
light
must
up.
one at a time.
There's no other types of crosswalk controls that would make it safer than the light up?
There are other techniques that are out there, but this is the latest fad. I guess this is
So if there was a.
Please, let him finish.
Oh, I thought he was finished.
No,
Were you not finished?
Please let him finish.
Okay. I thought he was finished.
Please, 2-second pause, then go.
Got it.
This is the most favorite tool in the toolbox right now for this type of crosswalk, is the rapid flashing units.
But there's nothing else that could be placed there that would make it safer.
No, other than this type of crosswalk.
Not even an additional stoplight?
No, you can't. You can't put you mean like a signal, like to stop the cars at red light, that wouldn't be warranted. You have to have a certain amount of traffic volume, turning volume to warrant a traffic signal, or a certain amount of pedestrian volume, and this is not even close. Plus, that would be not very good for speed, allowing it to another traffic light.
My question was, is there something that could be done beyond what you're proposing to make that crossing safer?
He answered that a couple times.
Your answer to my question about whether or not a signal would be a safer solution was that that's not going to happen. I'm asking the question, would that be safer?
No.
Having a dedicated signal lane would not make it safer to cross the street.
I have to hop in. It's the question answered. It has to move on at some point. You can't just keep on arguing the point. I understand the point that you do, but you have to move on.
Yeah, I was curious, honesty of the answer seems relevant, but, okay.
I can explain if you'd like. When you add a traffic signal,
That's what I'm here for. You're the expert.
when you add a traffic signal, you create rear-end accidents that aren't happening here now. So for the 8 to 10 pedestrian crossings at this location, would it be easier for them if you stopped all traffic and created rear ends? I guess, but that's not safer in my opinion.
I've lived at my house for 4 years. How many times do you think I've almost been hit in that crosswalk?
I have no idea.
Take a guess.
I'm not going to guess.
Again, you have to ask questions on what his testimony was, not other hypotheticals about you.
Okay. All right, well, thanks a lot, guys. I'll let you go.
Ann Dugan, 31 Campfield Place. Since we're on the crosswalk, I'll stick with that. Would it be safer to move the crosswalk on the other side of the box, on the other side of Speedwell Avenue? Because I know I live on So,
He asked the question, let me answer the question. You're not supposed to be testifying.
no, but I'm asking him about moving the crosswalk.
Yes.
Because if you go out to Dayton,
But you didn't, you asked the question, would it be better to move it? Please allow him to answer that.
The crosswalk is crossing at Hillview Avenue. It was put there for a reason. Presumably the school, I don't know. We're putting it in the best location at Hillview Avenue. Moving it to a completely different location would be a whole different study that I guess the borough could do, but this is where they asked us to put it. They asked us to ask NJDOT if it was okay. Everybody's agreed this is this
but
one.
in your opinion, people that are coming out Dayton and making a left, are trying to make that gap and trying to keep their eye on the crosswalk, that's like X amount of feet when they're trying to make the left and then people are crossing. It's a lot to keep looking at. If the crosswalk was on the other side, it seems to me it would be easier to make a left without hitting somebody in the crosswalk. But, okay, my second question. We spent a lot of time on the queuing coming in from Speedwell Avenue. What about when you're done going through the drive-through and you're going back out to exit onto Speedwell? And you said it takes during peak time, 47 seconds approximately to get out onto Speedwell, and you're doing 60 to 70 cars per hour. How much is that going to back up into the queuing line and back up the whole drive-through?
Yeah, I testified to that the last time. We checked that 95th percentile queue length, and in the weekday morning and evening, it's about one car. It's math calculation, so it's 1.1 and 0.9. For all intents and purposes, 1. And on the Saturday, which again I testified that I think we have a big overestimate of the numbers, but even with that, it's 2 cars. So
2 cars,
along,
not that long.
2 cars. 95% of the time, there will be 2 or less cars waiting to exit McDonald's.
When you're doing 70 per hour and there's 47 seconds, which I think is a low estimate, to make a turn, you're only gonna have 2 cars backed up to go out to Speedwell Avenue. That's your expert opinion.
That's mathematically calculated. It's our opinion.
Okay, also, is there any consideration for traffic from McDonald's that's over in Cedar Knolls, that's not a drive-through? The people that would have been going there that are now gonna come to the drive-through McDonald's? Is there any consideration for that?
I think the people who are doing that are people who have already passed the site and will be happy that there's a McDonald's here. I testified the last time. These are convenience. There's McDonald's all over the place. There's plenty of them around. You don't necessarily go out of your way, especially during peak hours, to go to McDonald's. So the 710 cars a day, the 70 in the hour, most of them are already driving on Speedwell Avenue anyway. They're just going to turn in and out of McDonald's.
But there are gonna be people that will go out of their way to use the drive-through, because I've done that many times.
Maybe.
Also, let's see. Okay, you said that the traffic wouldn't impact any of the side streets. In your opinion, if they would just be on Speedwell Avenue and disperse, that it would affect the side streets?
For 2 reasons. Again, they were dispersed, and because they would have already been on Speedwell impacting all those side streets
Okay,
anyway.
my question is, what about the people that want to go out Dayton or go out and make a left-hand turn? What's going to stop them from going out, making a right-hand turn onto Speedwell, then a right-hand turn onto Dayton, going down, around, going out to the traffic light to make their left turn, going through residential, highly residential area?
Nothing. Those are public roads. Anybody can do it. I've done it about a dozen times when I've been here. You have to know. You have to know that you can do it. You have to know the area.
Hello, my name is Carolyn Bennet and I live at 19 Dayton Road. Hello, my name is Carolyn Bennet and I live at 19 Dayton Road. I have a question. It's not necessarily about what you testified on, but your name is traffic expert in the application. Am I allowed to ask that question? Okay. On the last page, when it says variances, design waivers sought, and justification for same, under number 2, there's a whole thing about the variance that the applicant is asking for in terms of the size of the parking spaces. And it says that 9 by 18 parking stalls are an acceptable size and width for this use. And as our traffic expert will, and then there's nothing. So I was just wondering, what's the rest of that sentence and what are you gonna do?
That testimony's already been provided by the site engineer, that 9 by 18 spaces, that's the standard parking stall size throughout the country.
Sorry, can you say that again? I can hear you.
That's the standard parking stall size throughout the country. 9 by 18 is a typical size parking stall.
Okay, so the rest of that sentence should say that as our traffic expert will testify. There's nothing else that
I would
should be
assume
added there.
that's probably.
I was just doing my due diligence to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Okay, thank you. In terms of the crosswalk, since that seems to be the topic that we're on, in any of your traffic studies, I'm sure you've looked at lots of crosswalks. Have you ever seen data around AI enhancements for crosswalks?
No, yeah, I'm sure that's coming.
It is, and I know there are some companies that are working on it, but I know this isn't my place to share that. So I guess, is that something that's being considered for the DOT application? Because it sounds like you guys are trying to bring something great to this town that we're already not getting with the grant that's already been given to our town.
You gotta ask the question. You're testifying.
I asked him if that's something that he's considered.
Okay, and let him answer.
Okay.
No, I haven't considered an AI crosswalk. I don't know what that is, but.
And that's not part of the DOT application that you testified about last time?
No.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the DOT application process? Because I'm not wrapping my head around if they don't move forward with the things that you guys have outlined here.
What do you mean they don't move forward?
It sounds like nothing has been officially signed by the DOT and it's still an application. So I guess like what happens, let's say this gets approved or whatever, like what happens when you go back to the DOT to finalize the plans? Is there a way that they say, oh, actually, like we're not gonna let McDonald's move the crosswalk and extend it and add the beacon?
Is it possible? I suppose, but that's why we had the pre-application meeting to make sure that that wouldn't happen. But anything can happen. Yeah, it's their road.
Okay, I think that's good to know. In the 31 other McDonald's, I think that's what you said last time, that you worked on 31 other McDonald's applications.
Probably more than that, 31 where I compiled the data, yeah.
Were there exceptions to variances asked in those applications?
Every single one of them. I can't think of an application that didn't have at least one variance.
Was there any of those other 31 any other of those 31 locations that you talked about, where they met with a public hearing such like this, or is this the first time that this crowd and doing this process with you?
Most of them don't have a crowd, but some do.
So the size?
I'm gonna have to hop in. It has to be what he did testify to, not descriptions on things that happened. It has to be the testimony back here, okay?
I'm specifically talking about the 31 other applications that he talked about at great
You're talking
length.
about the number of people that showed up at another meeting. That's not relevant. I'm trying,
No,
but
I
that's
know.
not. That's anything here on this site, fair game, absolutely fair game.
Okay. So back to the variances to the ordinance that are on the application. When you say that the parking spaces that are being asked for are standard, can you elaborate how that works with a car that's parked with both of their doors open? I don't know the lengths of cars in that. I think you just said it was typically like 5 to 7 feet wide.
A 9-foot wide by 18-foot deep parking space is the standard design to accommodate parking vehicles and endorsements. 95% of the parking lots that you park in every day, that's the size of the spaces.
Why is it that the Borough of Morris Plains requires a different size one then?
It probably depends on when they made that suggestion, because years ago, back in the 70s, there was a trend of very large cars, so people wanted bigger parking spaces, but that trend is reversed.
Okay.
Now they just get taller, they have the SUVs, they're not getting wider.
Yeah, no, when I'm pregnant, it's very difficult for me to get my kids out of the car, but neither here nor there. Regarding the semi-truck that you testified about, and it's up on the screen, as a traffic expert, and
and you can tell me no, do you know how much these semi-trucks typically weigh when they're empty or when they're full of their delivery? As a traffic expert, do you know how long it takes one of these semi-trucks to come to a complete stop, going 30 miles an hour? Sorry, can you repeat that in the microphone?
I don't know.
Who would I be able to ask that question to? Because I think that's really important for this application, and I would suspect it would be the traffic expert.
Well, we don't necessarily agree. I don't think it's relevant.
Okay, back to the crosswalk then, if someone is trying to cross the crosswalk and there's a semi-truck coming, isn't it important to know how long that truck needs to stop before they run that person over?
Yeah, and that's called stopping sight distance, and I know those standards, and we're meeting those standards for signage placement and visibility.
Is the stopping sight distance, which you just quoted, different from a car than to a semi-truck?
Yeah.
I'm a little lost on how we don't know how long it takes a semi-truck to stop at a crosswalk.
It's not a time, you asked the time, I don't know the time, but there's distances that are met in order to satisfy vehicular traffic stopping. It's called stopping sight distance. Every road when you're driving on it has to have it, so there's a vehicle in front of you that stops, you don't run into the back of it. So curves, vertical curves, horizontal curves, and visibility to anything that might make you stop like a crosswalk. So
Does a heavier,
that is factored in.
yeah, and I'll look into that. Does a heavier vehicle take longer to stop?
Presumably, yes.
Okay. And also regarding the semi-truck that's up on the screen, if this falls under your purview, are there blind spots to a tractor trailer that are considered at all when we're drawing up a diagram like this?
Yeah, we make sure that there's visibility and safe access in and out of the site. Yeah, that's all taken into consideration. We provide all that.
So if there's somebody that's on the sidewalk walking up, for lack of better words, from Dayton, so like from my house, would we fall in the blind spot of a delivery truck that's pulling out onto our residential street?
No.
Can you elaborate more on how that's not an issue?
We can't, because roads can't be designed that way. You have to have visibility. There's nothing blocking the visibility in this area.
Is there gonna be a stop sign where that tractor trailer is waiting before it turns left onto Dayton?
There is one now.
So the tractor trailer that's leaving the parking lot?
Yeah, there's a stop sign here for him to stop here to look both ways coming out on Dayton, and then there's an existing stop sign. Well, there should be, it might have got knocked over, but there should be an existing stop sign in Dayton.
So at the first stop sign that you say is already there, if the tractor trailer is stopped there, can you elaborate on the blind spots of that tractor trailer?
It doesn't, he has sufficient visibility looking left and right to see oncoming traffic.
I'm not speaking about oncoming traffic. I'm talking about the fact that it's on a sidewalk where my kids walk and other pedestrians. And I want to know if the sidewalk right next to the tractor trailer is a concern that there could be a kid there and he doesn't see it. I'm not talking about the blind spot on the road. I'm talking about the blind spot of the actual vehicle on the sidewalk that's running into it.
He's not going to drive on the trucks don't drive on the sidewalk. I'm not sure I understand what your question is.
I'm going to try to reword my question again. If the tractor trailer stopped coming out of McDonald's trying to make a left, it has to stop at a stop sign. Is the stop sign placed before this pedestrian sidewalk or after?
Before.
And as a traffic expert, all vehicles stop before the stop sign. We've never seen vehicles creep up, Hollywood stop. That's not a thing.
No, you stop at the stop sign if there's a pedestrian crossing, which you can see. If there's not, then of course you creep out and improve your visibility.
So you just said that there's a pedestrian coming.
Yes, you're gonna stop behind the crosswalk if somebody's walking. If there's nobody walking, then you pull up to improve your visibility and turn left or right, like every driveway in America.
Okay. Not every driveway in America, I don't believe, has semi-trucks driving out as well, but it sounds like as a traffic expert, that's what you think is a normal thing.
Many unsignalized intersections have trucks. Think of warehouses and things that have lots of trucks coming out. This is one truck. It's two per week. 2 times per week this truck's gonna be there. That's it.
As a traffic expert, how many times do you think a kid has to get hit by a truck in order for something bad to happen?
Anytime a kid gets hit by a truck, something bad happens. That's why we design it to make sure that that's not gonna happen.
Okay. At 9:10, you spoke about how McDonald's is going to be paying for the crosswalk optimizations that are being made, but I'm really interested in learning more about the grant that the town has already been issued. What happened? Do we get that grant money back if the DOT application on done?
That's not what he testified to. He doesn't, it has to be what he testified to. Not, he didn't testify to the grants.
Okay.
It's gotta be, what's being built, that, as I said, what's being built, absolutely fair. I'm not trying to put that.
Okay. To enlighten us all, specifically me, a little bit more about being a traffic expert, can you shed light on credibility, specifically who fact checks someone that is a traffic expert?
I have a gentleman sitting right over there. Fact check this one. He was hired by your board to review my work.
So there's always just one layer of fact checking that's done and that's standard? I don't know traffic experts.
For
so this-
most of the time, yes, but in this case, we'll have that second layer with the New Jersey DOT as well.
And when that happens, when we go back to the DOT, there is room that they can change anything that's been presented to the public to date?
Actually, I can address this too, and I do understand, kind of the concern, but in probably every single site plan application involves a road, or involves environmental issues, or involves a neighboring property. There are always several layers of approvals you have to get, and you can't get the DOT and the county planning board and DEP and us all in the same room. So it's uniformly in every application, one board has to say yes, and then it gets that, what's going to be done, gets approved or confirmed or changed by another entity. If it gets changed, then generally they have to go back. That's just the nature of having so many regulatory bodies. One body acts and the next acts on it. If there's a significant change, it has to go back. But I hope that answers that concern. That happens in every application.
Okay, yeah, it does. I just want to, yeah, it does. So listening to the traffic study, I'm following what data was looked at on May 1st. Do you take into consideration, or can you share with us anything about the construction vehicles and how that will impact traffic, or that's not part of what the traffic expert looks at?
That's looked at if this is approved with the building department and pulling building permits, no, it's not looked at this time.
When you say about the 7-second gap, is that what we're aligned that there's a 7-second gap before people will turn onto speed law?
The nationally collected research says that people wait for a 7-second gap to turn left.
Would that also include a dump truck, just picking a vehicle out of the air?
It's a larger gap for a larger time for vehicles that are slower to accelerate. Which, if you're designing something for just those vehicles, you might look at that. This is designed for passenger vehicles.
And then our traffic studies done so I understand the traffic study is done to show that this isn't going to have a huge impact on the current traffic that's running through the town. Is there anything ever done like after the fact, or it's like, oh, I hope that what we shared was right?
It depends on the circumstance. For larger, like I said, for projects that generate a lot of traffic that actually are concerned with regard to traffic, there might be some layer of post-traffic study. This is a small use generating not that much traffic, but then most of the traffic it's generating is already out on the roads today and coming in and out. So, are there other mechanisms? Yes, but for something like this, no.
So there's no planned post-study traffic study, if I can parrot that back to you. Okay. In terms of the traffic that you've been testifying that's going to be coming to this McDonald's, it's fair to say that you agree that it's people that already live here?
Most of it, yes. Most of the people already traveling by. That's the point. The reason McDonald's wants to be here is to capture some of that traffic on Speedwell Avenue. That's why it's a good location for them.
Do you agree with the previous testimony from, I think it might have been your, not your counsel, the council that people are going to be seeking this location. I don't know what you guys call each other. People are going to be seeking.
I just thought about it when you said that. Go ahead.
I've lost my train of thought. That's okay. We have all night. So do you agree with what Mr. Patolo shared in his opening meeting, that this location is going to be bringing in people who can't afford the fancy restaurants all around the area? Because I see that as a contradicting fact.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that it would draw people in from other areas. That is something you seem to be concerned about. I did not say that. I didn't say it would draw people from other areas. I said it's an affordable food option in your area. You made that statement that would drawing people from other areas. I never said that.
Okay, so next meeting, or when the public can testify, am I allowed to bring proof that he said that?
Sure. Bring it.
Okay. I feel like we've talked a lot about the traffic patterns on Speedwell and how this isn't going to make a huge impact. What I'm struggling with is people leaving McDonald's onto Dayton, and they're only going to be making the left turn. How many cars back can that be before they can't leave the restaurant anymore?
How long would the queue have to be on Dayton?
Yeah.
Ballpark is say 8 car.
So then what happens in that situation when people leaving McDonald's trying to get on Dayton can't because there is a long queue?
8 cars?
Have you driven on Dayton in the morning trying to bring people to daycare? 8 cars there is pretty reasonable, so I think it is a valid question.
I don't see that happening, but they'd have to wait until the queue moved up and then turn out.
So then if they have to wait, which is what you just said, wouldn't that cause a backflow that could eventually pour out into blocking anything else that's up on the screen? Parking spots, dumpster, anything?
No.
How so?
I don't have any concern about that happening at all.
Can you say that a little louder?
I don't have any concern about that happening at all.
Is that your opinion?
Yes.
Okay. And then something that you said today and last week was that you don't anticipate people wanting to wait for McNuggets if they're trying to turn left off of Speedwell into the drive-thru. Is that correct?
I'm sure I made the McNuggets joke, but I don't think it was anything about making a left. The question that your traffic engineer asked is, if there was a scenario where the drive-thru was backed up, what would likely happen? And he agreed with me that likely you would bypass and go to a different McDonald's or a different restaurant or do something else rather than wait that long for chicken nuggets.
Where does that conclusion come from? That people wouldn't wait for that?
Common sense, just natural human behavior.
So you don't think that a mom with kids in her car and they can't afford all of the other restaurants that are around the area and they need to eat dinner before practice or whatnot wouldn't want to turn left and get that meal?
Sure, they would, but that's not the question. His question was if the drive-thru was backed up to the street. You're saying turning in the middle left? Yeah, that's no problem.
No, I'm saying if it's backed up and I need to get into that restaurant because I don't have another choice. My kids are hungry. I don't have money to go to all of the other fancy places and I need to make that left into that drive-thru.
Yeah.
And I can't because it's backed up. What is the traffic flow then resulting from me waiting there trying to make a left?
You'd be sitting there and people would be going around you while you're waiting with your turn signal.
Where on this diagram are people going to be going around me? Because I think that's something that we keep asking and you keep joking about it. And I say the word joke because you just said that word.
If a car is sitting at the WL line waiting to make a left, there's enough room to go around them for through traffic. It happens all up and down Speedwell Avenue. I sat out there for half an hour today and watched it happen at the Dunkin' Donuts a dozen times.
And what happens when the traffic light is red and the cars are all the way backed up? and nobody can go through. Like, this is going to create a bottleneck problem, would it not?
No, it will not. I don't know what else I can tell you. I think you're seeing a doomsday scenario that's not reality.
So I don't see that as not being reality, because this is my reality. I live on the street. Do you?
Ma'am, it's got to be a question.
I just finished with do you? He just said that this is a doomsday, not reality, and I'm asking him, I am letting him know that it is a reality that I can clearly lay out because I live there, and my question is, do you live there?
No, I don't.
Okay. Really quickly, last question. So when you say that you've done this for many other McDonald's, I think you mentioned Chick-fil-A, Popeyes, Wendy's, 31 other McDonald's, that's correct? This is not a new process for you?
Correct.
Okay. I guess, like, are we annoying you? Because it seems like we are.
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I wouldn't want to do that. Thank you.
Hi, Greg Devine, 91 Sun Valley Way. Testifying thousands of traffic studies, right? And you've testified a few times tonight and answered questions regarding the safety, including, like, that's why we designed the truck exit that way for safety concerns. So it's part of your traffic study, risk and safety concerns. Do they take that into consideration?
Yes.
Okay, great. So for this particular site and the design, what in particular is the projected rate of collisions or injuries based on vehicle volume?
None.
Zero.
Zero.
And is that in the traffic study? Any data study you looked at?
No, we designed it for safety to avoid that from happening. If I projected any injury or accident, then I would change it. Tell the client to change it.
So there's no data, as you said, I'm sorry, what data do you rely on data and projections and modeling for your traffic study, right?
Yes.
So there's no data on projected rates of collisions, rear-end collisions in the drive-through, or pedestrian injuries or crosswalk or walkway in the drive-through? There's zero data available on that.
Yeah, there's existing data, and I got it from your police department. There's been 3 crashes in this part of Speedwell Avenue in the past 3 years. One of them was down on Rosedale Avenue, and the other 2 were near here in the rear ends.
I'm sorry.
No, please, let him answer. Please let him answer.
I'm going to introduce you to it.
No.
I'll listen to you tell me to wait for him to answer. Okay.
Yes, there's no substantial crash pattern here.
Great. I'm not asking about Speedwell. I'm asking about, is there any data on the volume of 700 plus cars open every day, thousands of cars? What data is available, if any, on the rate of collisions within the perimeter of the site or the entrance or exit to the site, rear-ending within the drive-through, or pedestrians being hit? There's zero data available on that?
Zero.
Never been provided.
He's answered the question a couple times now.
I'm sorry. No, he answered the question about Speedwell.
No, I did, and you testified, and you asked questions last meeting of this witness, sir.
Yeah, that's not relevant.
No, that's true.
And this is an
the
entirely
attorney-
new subject.
The attorney said that people who were gonna ask questions were those who didn't ask questions. You were up here last meeting asking this witness questions. That's all I'm saying. I'm not looking to pick a fight with you.
Right, and great.
I'm just pointing it out.
And there's a precedent that there's about 7 other folks, so you've waived that tonight. So here I am asking questions.
Okay.
My question is about within the perimeter of the building. You've provided zero data on projected injuries or collisions within the perimeter for your traffic study.
Correct.
And has anybody on the board or the town asked you for any projected occurrence based on vehicle volume for anticipated accidents or injuries or collisions within the perimeter?
No.
Nobody's asked for that?
No.
Okay. And as an expert today, can you say that no collisions occur ever at McDonald's?
No.
You mean you can't answer that?
No, I'm sure collisions have occurred in McDonald's, of course.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I'm sure collisions have occurred in McDonald's. I can't say that no collisions ever occurred in the McDonald's.
Are you personally aware of any actual data or instances where collisions occurred within McDonald's?
I'm not. No.
No, okay. So, with that being an expert today, can you project, you are an expert on traffic, and especially McDonald's with thousands of plans. As an expert today, you can opine or provide a professional opinion on, let's talk, so I could say 1 in 5,000 cars, which is 6-7 days.
Excuse me, please, you have to stop. The board and me are the arbiter of kind of what can go on. You have to ask him what he has testified to his report. You can't create things that you want him to testify to. You can ask him questions, and if you have an expert at the end that will testify to what you're talking about, you're more than welcome to put him on. But he didn't testify to that.
He testified to safety earlier, so I'm asking safety questions.
No, he didn't testify to any of this crash data. That's the point. I understand.
So as an expert, I can't ask him if he has any knowledge or opinion on, let's talk 20,000 vehicles on the rate of incidents of
Excuse me, you have to move on. You have to, okay?
Regarding your experience, professional experience, I heard 31 McDonald's is the number of locations that we're going to get information for, so we can look at those traffic studies, the location.
You're not getting the traffic studies. We're giving you
traffic studies.
Well, let me finish. We're going to give you the addresses, and then we're going to submit that list to the traffic engineer. And you're more than welcome to obtain that information and do whatever you want with it.
Great. Those 31 McDonald's. You testified earlier that McDonald's is moving towards higher volume drive-throughs with 2 lanes. And that's been a trend with reconstruction of McDonald's to rebuild them with 2 drive-through lanes.
Yes.
The 31 studies that you've done previously, were those for new restaurants where a drive-through restaurant previously did not exist, or are they all renovations to existing drive-through restaurants?
He's already answered that, but go ahead. You can answer it again.
The 31 that I'm referencing were obviously existing McDonald's. That's how I was able to count them. So yeah, they're all remodels of existing McDonald's.
So none of those 31 include brand new restaurants where there was not previously a drive-through restaurant?
How could it possibly? How could I count a McDonald's that didn't exist?
I mean, you've never done a traffic study like this one where McDonald's didn't previously exist.
Oh yeah, I have. But the 31 I'm referencing are ones that I counted the existing McDonald's.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the 31 that you're going to be providing to the traffic engineer don't include any of the ones where there was not previously a McDonald's drive-thru.
What am I missing? I don't understand what you're talking about. I counted physical, actual open McDonald's, and that's the 31 that I'm talking about.
Right, I'm asking about
If
your
McDonald's didn't
experience.
exist, then how could I count it?
Okay. In your experience, how many, I think what I'm looking for is to look at where there was not previously a McDonald's drive-thru, right? Where you conducted a traffic study, and then so that we have an opportunity to look at the impact of that McDonald's after the traffic study.
Oh, so you want addresses of ground-up McDonald's?
Yes. That's
He's relying upon the information in his report. So we're not going to produce any more information. We're going to give you the 31 addresses, but we're not going to keep providing names of McDonald's all over the country that are ground-up McDonald's. I mean, he's testified about why he believes this is an acceptable location from a traffic and a parking perspective. The board engineer has vetted it. He has agreed with the methodology and the findings, and so we're going to rely on that. So we're not going to continue to be producing all this other additional information.
I'll I'll aim it at you. What you're looking for is information you might want to get. Applicants are not obligated to give it to you. A conversation with a traffic engineer, separate from anybody in this room, might be able to generate that for you, but you generally can't compel an applicant to give information that they're not relying on. That's kind of a quick answer.
Well, I think the application relies on your experience, right? As a traffic engineer, and your experience includes all of those McDonald's
But you're,
locations.
the quick is that you're allowed to ask him what his report on this and what's being built and his opinions about this, not just generally not. I understand you might want to, but if you want to go get other things that they've said, an applicant is not obligated to give you that. They're simply not.
But as a
very
means
easy
of
to get.
assessing their experience, expertise, and
And you can go get that. You're allowed to bring that in at another time. Absolutely, but they're not forced to give that to you.
Okay. As part of your professional practice, have you gone back to assess the impact or the accuracy of your studies after the fact? You testified a little earlier that it was only for major projects.
We're only required to do it by some jurisdictions for major projects, but yes, I've gone back and done updated studies after the fact.
How many of those ended up experiencing traffic impacts greater than you assessed?
Very few. I would say that happens maybe less than 5% of the time. I've seen a site generating more traffic than I projected. 95% of the time it's generating less, because in New Jersey we have less reliance on cars than the country as a whole, which is where the data comes from. I've gone back to McDonald's specifically, since they've gone from the single to the double drive-through, and seen great improvement from that.
Even where there wasn't previously a McDonald's right there.
Well, I think we're not understanding each other.
I guess we're not.
There's an existing McDonald's with one driver. I do traffic counts at it, see how many cars go in and out, how long the drive is. Then they rebuild it and put it double, and I go back.
But
So if
there
there wasn't a
isn't one.
McDonald's there, I couldn't go back, because it wasn't there before.
All right. Hey, Cecere.
So yeah, just a couple of short things. My name is Gina Musolino, I'm 47 Parker Drive.
You say it one more time.
Sure, Musolino, M-U-S-O-L-I-N-O. So I guess we've talked a lot about the children being across the street from the school. You all obviously know that. It actually is a middle school, so it's not elementary school to middle. So we have 8th graders, after school, you know that too. I guess I'm just curious about the, also, I don't know if you know, there also is a lot of talk about the busing, for sporting events, but our kids actually, the majority of which don't get buses, it's not in our budget. So they're just kind of, a lot of them are walkers, and so as you know, they'll be crossing, probably going to McDonald's. I guess the question is, given the constraints of the lot, has it ever been considered to, not have the pedestrians or, specifically kids walk straight, into the circle of traffic? Is there an option to have a traffic flow, not, have that entrance, the only entrance to the building is like through the circle of cars?
You're talking about one site?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, the cars will circulate around the entire building, so there's no other way to do it.
Okay.
They're gonna have to cross it that well.
Okay.
Like any other retail establishment.
Yeah. And then my last question really is that I think that this was brought up the last time, the line of sight as you exit, as the drivers exit, and they make a left there, right? So the crosswalk is blocked by the building, I guess, and so they're making this sharp left. And so as we know, the drivers, I would imagine, through a drive-through aren't the most observant as they're,
grabbing a french fry, looking down for a second. So I think it was the engineer mentioned he could move the crosswalk further south. I think he mentioned that last, I don't remember what meeting it was, but was that revised or, that's my first question. Secondly, it seems like it's not even a possibility because, you know, further south is right on top of the entrance and exit, so I was just
Are you
curious.
asking about the main side, the main crosswalk that everyone's been asking about?
Well, the one in the,
In our-
yeah,
inside.
exactly, the
Okay.
one in the,
Yep.
Yeah, and we've put that speed table that, you know, to make it obvious that it's a pedestrian crossing, you're making the sharp turns and you're not coming at a high speed. And I'm not sure if the testimony was that it could be moved over, in my view, without having looked at all the site analysis, I think it could. If that was the testimony, we would do it. The plans haven't been revised to show that minor change, but if that was the testimony, then we can do it.
so you're thinking, I mean, you could move it over, or I guess it would.
Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, we'll move it over.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad suggestion.
Okay, yeah, that's all, just really, you know, that the kids are,
Yeah,
walking
got it.
around, so that was just a concern.
Just a question.
Good evening, Mike Ivey, 8 Leamore Drive. So for the parking configuration of the tractor again, it would have to pull forward to straighten out the trailer and then perform basically a flying backing maneuver, which is one of the more dangerous maneuvers for a tractor trailer to make to pull in adjacent to the dumpster.
We've been over this.
Yeah, I'm just confirming.
Many times, many times. So, go ahead, one last time.
Yes, it would back up to the red outline.
Yeah, you may have asked this for answers, right? So is this typical for McDonald's?
Yes.
That are newly designed? Okay.
Yes.
That was it. So for the gap intervals that you did the count for Appendix D, why are they not broken out by highway direction like the other traffic counts were?
They are within the software, what do you mean?
It says
They're not-
north southbound combined.
Oh, yeah.
So it doesn't show which gaps are available on the north side versus the southern side to show the disparity.
Well, you only need the northbound side and then combined, because we're on the, we're coming in, if you're gonna make a right, you have to look at the gaps in the northbound, if you're gonna make a left, you have that left. So the southbound.
So it's a worst case scenario.
Okay.
Okay. So for the gap to total gas to gap demand relationship, the way that it says right now is that it'll operate safely and efficiently. At what point would it not be safe or efficient? Is that when the gap demand exceeds the total gaps?
If the gap demand exceeded the total gaps, then yeah, you have people needing to make a right who wanted to make a left. Yes.
Okay. So for the purpose of this clarification, the Dayton Road exit for Saturday has 4 coming out, just use for example. The site exit to Speedwell has 37. The gap analysis that you were using has the gap demand of 37, which is just the driveway. Would it also be Dayton as well, since they're both trying to grab the same gaps at the same time, so you'd have 4 and 37? So the total number of your gap demand would be 41 and not 37?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, you could do a separate gap study at Dayton, presumably you'd get about the same numbers that you get at the other one. They're in the Dayton.
Okay. So the new trip distribution has about 50-50 coming from north and south from 202. Given that East Hanover Ave is an arterial roadway to the area, would it be safe to say that most new trips would be coming off East Hanover Ave, especially since it's only 1,000 feet away from the highway?
You mean new trips as in not pass by? Is that, yeah, sure, possibly. Usually it's kind of the prevailing traffic patterns with kind of a 50-50 split.
Okay. Have you performed any sensitivity analysis to the north-south distribution to determine how the traffic impacts would change if any of those parameters were altered?
Yes, my report, I believe, is a sensitivity analysis. I think left turn. Excuse me.
Hold on.
My report is a sensitivity analysis. I think I have way more left turns projected in my report than you're actually going to see. And that was at the request of your traffic engineer to really test that worst case scenario. So yes, that is a sensitivity. That's what it works.
If, are you aware that if, for example, 75% of the new trips from the Saturday peak come from the southbound side, the amount of cars that return to go back to East Hanover would exceed the total vehicle gaps and present the most likely level of service staff?
No, I don't know. That's not what the report says.
I know because you're assuming 50/50. What, if anything, would trigger a traffic study for the intersection of 202 and East Hanover Ave? Not by you, by anybody. They could be the DOT. It's a more general question.
There's no magic bullet.
For this application, can you explain the process for the DOT approval once this is complete?
Yeah, we file an application, in this case it's a major access application with the DOT. They have 30 days to review the materials that we submit, tell us if the application is complete or if we need to provide more information. Once it's deemed complete, our case manager, who's the main person at DOT, will send off a set of plans and all of our reports to several different departments within the DOT. Drainage, lighting, bike and ped, there's several different departments that review it. They'll all give their comments, send it back to the case manager, he compiles it all into one letter for us, and sends it back to us. We then have 90 days to address those comments, and we send it back to them, and it can go back and forth a few rounds, or it can be quick, it depends on how.
Okay. And it's all based off of the traffic study here, or will they request subsequent?
No, this doesn't generate enough traffic for them to ask for a traffic study, but we'll give it to them anyway.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Jessica Orr, 15 Hillview Avenue, and I just have a few questions for you.
Sure.
So, you stated at November 12th meeting that the traffic counts were conducted on Wednesday and Saturday, May 1st and May 4th. You stated that the traffic counts vary from day to day. We're in a hybrid work environment, so no 2 days during the work week have the same traffic counts. Understanding this Wednesday may not represent the peak time, traffic day time. Why were traffic counts conducted for each day to determine the true peak traffic day and time? Just curious.
Generally, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you limit your counts to. Mondays and Fridays, I agree, tend to have lower traffic volume, so that's why we picked the Wednesday. And again, that's the day we did the physical data collection. Our staff and myself have been at the site a number of times. We're not seeing anything different than we saw that day. The numbers, of course, are going to change every day, so we build in layers into our report to be conservative to account for that. A growth rate that's too high, traffic generation that's too high, more left turns than I think we're going to see. All those things test the worst case to make sure that we can absorb that crazy day where it's a little busier. That's the idea.
Okay, thank you. You had said that the traffic studies being conducted discuss the traffic scenarios while McDonald's is operational. However, there will be impacts from truck traffic during the demolition and construction phase of the site. Were traffic studies and simulations done for the demolition and construction of the site? And if so, what are the levels of service during the period? Do traffic mitigation plans during demolition and construction exist? And if so, was this shared with the council and the public?
He's been asked that question. He was asked that question tonight, and he gave an answer, so it's been asked and answered.
But I can assist you that if there was an approval prior to construction, there's a meeting with borough officials on, to mitigate any construction impacts. That's typical that's done, that they have to get clearance from everybody in the borough to minimize that. That's dealt with. That's how that's dealt with.
And DOT in this case. So.
Thank you. I just wanted to address the discussion around the peak patron times and the wait times that was discussed with traffic with you. The Insight report states that the national average wait time is about 5 minutes and 43 seconds. You stated it's not accurate as it does not look at peak hours, and then states that we can anticipate a wait time of approximately 4 minutes. However, you achieved an average wait time number by looking at both peak and non-peak hours, which would suggest that the peak hour wait times are longer, not shorter, than the average wait for 5 minutes and 43 seconds. So could you just explain, again, I'm sorry if you already did, how you arrived at peak traffic wait time for 4 minutes?
Yeah, okay. I think maybe you misunderstood that the Insight study I have right here that you're referencing. When I first saw it, I thought, this is the greatest thing ever. I can use this, and then the numbers didn't make sense, and I realized it's because they're not looking at the peak hours, so looking at all times of day. So at midnight, when you go to get a burger and fries at McDonald's, it's going to take you a lot longer than it would at 5 o'clock in the afternoon because they don't have as many staff and as much food prepared. So that's one thing. The 4 minutes I said was the latest insight study shows about 4 minutes at McDonald's. And I said that makes sense if you're saying, if the cars are moving up in 30-second pods, 8 cars would be at 4 minutes. That's total time of driving.
Okay.
So it fits, but be careful relying on that data because it's an average over a day, not necessarily what we're focused on peak times.
It's just the data that we're given, so I'm just gonna make sure we're.
Yeah.
I'm doing my research.
I'm sorry that's confusing, but that's,
Okay, so you're stating also that the car is processed every 20 seconds, helping to eliminate queue issues in the drive-thru. Studies show that the average order processing takes 45 to 75 seconds. Higher volumes of orders, particularly during peak time, would result in a longer order processing time. Would you explain how you concluded that the shorter processing rates would be achieved during peak hours?
it's shorter processing rate per car, but it might be a longer time because there's more cars in front of you.
Okay. And then, sorry, back to the InTouch report. So the InTouch report also notes that the traffic volume increases, processing speeds and order accuracy decreases. These events further delay the process and extend the queue. The detailed report indicates that the total time for the complete end-to-end process for McDonald's is 413 seconds, which is just under 7 minutes, which conflicts with what you had estimated approximately 4 minutes. So we just wanted to know how you got that peak wait time per car.
InTouch Insight right here, McDonald's, 2022, 118 seconds was the average that this study found, 2023, 205, and 2024, 238. So, I read it right here. I didn't.
Okay, got it. Okay. And then, one of my last questions is, table 4 of the traffic impact study shows the primary trips to the site with the Friendlies as an active site of car trips. However, the site has been receiving no car trips for several years. So how are the additional car trips shown in the table accurate if car trips are only occurring for that small office building?
That's based on ITV projections. In other words, if I was going to build a Friendlies in those office buildings, those are the numbers that I would use. It's informational for comparison purposes. I didn't take credit for it in my analysis. It's just to give you, here's the magnitude of traffic that could already be generated out there. Somebody could move into Friendlies and reopen it as another restaurant without having to come to this board or anywhere. That's the potential. And again, informational. I assume that this is being built on in the woods. No traffic.
Okay. Well, I live on Hillview Avenue, so that's what my concern is. And, there's a lot more questions I have about this later. Thank you.
Hi, Cherylann Davies, 23 Kathleen Place. So my first question as a traffic expert is, can you confirm for me that Speedwell Avenue is one lane in each direction in front of the site?
Yes.
So you've testified multiple times that if there's a backlog onto Speedwell Avenue, cars should go around to pass, right? To go around the car.
They do.
I'm pretty sure, and again, can you confirm that in front of McDonald's it is a double yellow line,
It is a double yellow line.
which you're not supposed to pass on?
You don't go around on the left side of it, you go
Is
on the
there
right
a-
side of it.
So you're passing on the right.
If a car stops, and it happens all the time on Speedwell.
I understand it happens.
Wait,
You gotta let them finish.
please, let him answer. If a car stops to make a left turn through traffic, uses the parking lane to bypass them, because nobody ever parks on Speedwell Avenue. It's not that you can't, but nobody's parked there. So that happens all the time.
So my question was, is that legal?
Is it legal? I don't know.
That's the question, right? Is it
Happens all the
legal?
time.
Please. And both, and him too. When one person's speaking, let the other person finish.
I can tell you, if you looked at motor vehicle code, it would probably tell you that that's not legal, and it also tells you that passing on shoulders is not legal, but New Jersey DOT doesn't have us put left turn lanes in when there's a shoulder because it can be used for passing, so it's just one of those things that happens. Letter of the law, I guess it's not legal. But it happens, it's done.
Okay, so if a car is turning right into McDonald's and waiting to turn right into McDonald's, they're also illegally passing on the left.
I don't know if that is I think the cars running right, if they're far enough over or in the parking lane, they're the ones who are running. This is semantics. It's the way that driving happens. It's the way this roadway works. It's the way all roadway works. All roadways work. It's also illegal to speed, but I don't know about you. I'm usually not under the speed limit. You know.
In Morris Plains, I know the speed limit because you will get pulled over.
Watch it.
Okay, thank you.
Scott Prater, 17 Rosedale Ave. Just to follow up on that, you said that your job is to design a safe traffic flow, right? But you're suggesting that cars make illegal maneuvers to accommodate this traffic flow?
I'm not suggesting that. Cars can make these maneuvers all the time on roads all over the country. And especially here. I just said, I sat here for about a half an hour before coming over here watching what was going on, and it happens all the time. I didn't design it that way. That's the way the road is. It exists.
Thank you.
Paul Clorey, 18 Hillview Avenue. I don't have a traffic question. I think we can ask if the train use Morris Plains for 33. My question is about the fire department and the report that you showed earlier about the fire department saying no comment with regard to this application. I've been a journalist for 40 years in national publications. I can't tell you how many times I've been told no comment. That means that they're not going to answer the question. Are you taking this no comment on this fire department report as a positive versus not, in fact, referring to anything in the report? Because I've not seen a report you just kind of wave it.
That, he didn't, I think that was the attorney.
The attorney, right. So
Let's leave it, but it made it available, but you can ask questions on his testimony. Occasionally, Mr. Vitolo is a little bit more indulgent than he should be. That's right. He provided that the public can see it, but he didn't testify. You can ask him questions if you have a question or something he testified.
So one of the experts has said that something was on a piece of paper and we can't ask a question about it.
If it's not about what he testified to.
He's not testifying?
I'm not going to go back and forth with him. No.
So you're not answering the question. Thanks.
Julie Gould, 35 Grove Avenue. Just wanted to ask, how did you gather data on bicycle and pedestrian traffic in the area, or motorized scooters, which we've seen an uptick of in our area?
We do our traffic counts. That's what I'm for. We count pedestrians, and if there's bicycles, there's either doing the tick mark, then there are no bicycles.
There were no bicycles in the report.
Not that those would take peak times now.
Were there any motorized scooters in the report?
I think they would call that a bicycle, so no.
Were there any measures considered for accommodating those non-motorized users, or do you just focus on the cars themselves?
We're putting a bike ramp, that was in the prior testimony, so we're accommodating those users. The roadway itself, the way of the future is they're going to be accommodated more and more. DOT is very good in biking that stuff now, so.
I understand from a parking perspective, but anything from a safety measure for the bicycles and non-motorized users?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way of the future, bike lanes and shared use paths, like the wide sidewalks for bikes and pedestrians, you're going to see a lot more of it.
How did you conduct outreach to gather, or did you conduct any outreach to gather public input on traffic concerns before doing your research?
I think he answered that before. He didn't do that, right?
Isn't that what we're doing here?
Well, that's after the fact, so it's a little, post-mortem. I also just wanted to ask, is it standard practice that a traffic expert be hired by the business looking to enter a town, or is it standard that it be hired by the town itself to represent its people?
Both. Both of them here.
In the majority of what you've done, is it mostly representing the company looking to enter the town, not the town?
Mostly that's what I do. I've represented some town boards too, but.
That will conclude the traffic portion. That will conclude the traffic portion of this application. Mr. Vitolo?
Yes, we'd like to call Nicholas Graviano, our planner.
My first name is Nicholas with an H, last name Graviano, G-R-A, V as in Victor, I-A-N-O.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give this evening and in the subsequent evening for this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You ready? Okay, Mr. Graviano, why don't you give the board the benefit of your education qualifications, please?
Yes, I hold a bachelor's degree from Rutgers University, a master's degree in city and regional planning from Rutgers University, a law degree from the Temple University School of Law, where I received a distinguished class performance in state and local government law. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I also hold an AICP certification. I've testified before over 100 boards in 18 different counties in the state of New Jersey.
We'd like to qualify this witness as an expert in professional planning.
Does the board have any questions? Have you ever testified before this board?
No, I have not.
Surrounding towns?
Yes, Whitney, Rockaway, five different municipalities in Morris County.
Board satisfied with his credentials? Okay, go ahead. Thank you very much. Do you think we want to take a break? Do you want to?
You want like 3 minutes, or are you okay?
Well, I'm going to ask you, do you think this is an appropriate time to quit for the evening?
I mean, we're prepared to go with his affirmative testimony. So,
How long do you think your testimony is?
I could be quick, I could probably be around a half hour.
How does the board feel about that? Okay, hold off for the testimony for the next meeting.
I defer to what Mr. Rotolo would like to.
well, I don't know what's going on.
We'd like to hold off for his testimony until the next
Yeah,
meeting.
the only thing I'll say is that Mr. Graviano moved a family vacation to be here tonight by a day. He canceled his flight and rescheduled it because we were trying to get him in. Because he was not available at which date? At the next. So,
I'm going to go out on a limb and say there's going to be a few questions from the public following his testimony. So that's not going to finish tonight.
no, I completely understand that.
You want to take 5 minutes? Okay, you can do a half hour? Okay, take a break. We'll give you, 5, just our, the court reporter is the only one that's taken a 5-minute break, and we're going to start the testimony.
Okay, so we will not be presenting Mr. Graviano's testimony this evening. And we will respectfully request a meeting on December 9th to complete Mr. Graviano's testimony, and then...
That's the meeting that's scheduled.
Oh, I'm
That's the
sorry.
regular, yeah, they moved it to December, so we
Yes,
are,
yes.
the next, and for the members of the public, well, you probably know it, the next regularly scheduled meeting is the 9th.
Right.
And this is going, and it's going to move to that date.
And it will be here.
Right.
And we're going to, Karen? We're going to schedule the next meeting that's here on the 9th.
Right, that's a regular scheduled meeting, that the location is just changing from the council chambers to here, okay?
Yes, I apologize. It is the next regular meeting.
And we'd like to start the meeting, you'll have to send out a notice, we'll start the meeting at 7 o'clock because we have other matters to consider.
Okay, all right, so the meeting will start earlier, but I also need you to, your letter to Karen.
It's taken care of.
Your letter stated
We have
till
that.
the 7th.
It's taken care of, yeah. So, I think we're all set.
Yes, thank you.
And
So, as you've heard, the meeting is going to continue. Right now, it's scheduled for 7:30. It's going to be changed, so you know in advance, for 7 o'clock here on December 9th.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Excuse
Board.
me one
Appreciate it.
second, though, I need a letter to say that you're carrying this, because your letter said December 6th.
I've got that.
Okay, I need that, okay?
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
very good, thank you, and we'll see you then.
Sir,